Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow underway. The Wednesday edition is upon us. Chad, that means time to go fast over the next 3 hours, leading up to 6 p.m. Eastern.
That's, I think, a line from Talladega Nights.
Time to go fast?
Daddy, I want to go fast. Maybe that's part
Plenty
of it.
of lines.
That's what we want to do today.
Nights.
We just want to go fast.
We've got it for you. Dan Dockich joins us, host of Don't At Me with Dan Dockich here on the OutKick Network in 20 minutes. Always a great chat there. And the president of OutKick, Clay Travis, with us in hour number 2, and plenty of headlines throughout. How was the evening? Everything good?
It was good. The evening was good. I'm on a show now, Hutton, that I've shocked myself that I'm into this subject matter in this show, but I'm saving it for the debut of a new feature on the show to discuss what I'm watching right now. That this is the one tease I'll give you. It shocks me that I like this. I can't believe it. I've shared it with close friends and said, will someone watch this and tell me if I'm crazy or not for being all in on this show? It is not a
Chad
cartoon.
hates cartoons.
I don't like animation of any kind, so I'm against it. It's definitely not a cartoon.
What we were watching last night is our top headline today across the headlines in sports, Scorched Earth with Hot Mike and Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. The biggest headlines from the All-Star game, aside from the awful uniforms, go back to what has always worked there. It's Rob Manfred saying that Atlanta could host the 2025 All-Star game. This after in 2021, they removed the All-Star game out of Atlanta, who has not hosted the game since 2000, removed the game and sent it to Colorado with the Rockies because of the new voting laws in the state of Georgia. And Manfred is admitting here that they were wrong in doing so by listening to the mob instead of the baseball fans that were ready to go and hyped up for the game in Atlanta. It took plenty of money out of the state, out of the city, out of the Braves Stadium, Truist Park, and took money out of pockets of everyone that was going to be involved business-wise working that game. And, Chad, here's Major League Baseball saying Atlanta's being considered. Now, they're also considering the Cubs. They haven't hosted the All-Star game since 1990. The Orioles are being considered. They haven't hosted since 93. Toronto's also on this list. And then there's Atlanta. And if they end up going straight back, next year is in Arlington with the Rangers. If they end up going straight back to Atlanta after this, this is waving the flag that says, don't give in, speak out, and don't move a game to another state that has very similar voting laws for the reason as you moved it out of the state that you were unhappy with.
Well, remember when that law went through also, the big commotion was about, well, now people that otherwise would be voting, they're not going to be able to vote, and voter turnout's going to be lower. And then what happened was you had a record voter turnout at the next election in the state of Georgia. So that was proven wrong. Major League Baseball has been proven wrong by their stupid decision to get involved with politics. And on a lesser scale of that, not just get involved in politics, but to cave to the masses on social media, to cave to pressure. You got to stand up for something, and you got to not cave.
Over misinformation.
I have long said my stance on owning a professional team or a league. I want to be about the teams and the sport, and I want everyone that wants to be a part of it to be a part of it. But another key rule in this is don't make a rash decision based on immediate response to something.
Well, a great example is they're not doing that with the Rangers.
Exactly.
The Rangers
they're
didn't
learning,
have
I think
their
they're learning,
Pride Night or whatever.
I think they're learning from the heirs of their ways in the past. People are going to want apologize or demand. They're not going to apologize. It's not going to happen. But the fact that Atlanta's back in the mix and Rob Manfred is saying so, that's as close to an apology as you're going to get from Major League Baseball on what was just an atrocious decision to get involved with this and take away an event that would have helped, by the way, a lot of black-owned businesses in Atlanta that have a higher percentage of black-owned business than a lot of other cities where that All-Star game, where they moved it where it could have gone. So all they did was hurt the people they claimed that they were defending in that move. It's stupid to get involved in this way. It was dumb at the time. It's dumb today. And good for Major League Baseball, essentially admitting as much by saying, Atlanta, you're okay. you're now under consideration for an All-Star game in 2 years.
And isn't it if you give this game back to Atlanta, you're washing your hands of it now. You're moving forward.
Oh yeah.
And then the fact that again, Texas, the Rangers organization, they're not into doing all these special nights, and they were not and will not hold one for Pride Night in the month of June and for the foreseeable future based on their statement there. But they're following the mantra of what you've always laid out, and that should be the case because we've long said, and I stand by this, I don't care who I'm sitting next to at a game, at a stadium. It's the one place where I can get away from it and all the crap and the pointing of who's worse, not who's better, but who's worse than the other side. That's not going to happen at a sporting event. By and large, fans don't care.
Well,
and they rip that away from the fans.
Yeah, and it's just such a dumb, slippery slope because not just with the Texas Rangers deciding not to have a Pride Night, someone's going to protest that and cause a stink over that. But it's also, you could go to a lot of states and find some bill that someone's not going to approve of. That was legally passed within that state's constitution. That was done on the up and up. So do we want to go and nitpick and legislate after the fact certain laws that take place in certain states, and then one side of the political aisle can just say, all right, let's X out this state, this state, this state, and this state from ever having anything good in sports.
Well, but
can't have any good sports events there because we disagree with this one bill or with this one law. And when you're Major League Baseball, you're the one with the power to make this decision. When you made the decision to remove the Major League Baseball game, All-Star game from Atlanta and Georgia, then you've opened up the door to other protests in the future about something someone might not like.
Other protests that the media will build up as, some groundbreaking coverage that they're on top of.
Yeah, it's stupid.
One side's being slided over the other. Because they're not responding to every criticism and bills that are passed, just the ones that one network wants to point to over another. And they're only responding to the CNNs and others that are covering this based on the new election law, as if it's, some controversy. The controversy was created whenever Major League Baseball pulled it out of Georgia.
To end this, let me make it really clear to Major League Baseball. All 50 of these United States are eligible for your All-Star game. All of them.
And for expansion.
Let's go. Well, so let's move on. All 50 states are now eligible, and that should be your stance.
I don't know what's taking so long or has taken so long for the Alvin Kamara punishment from the NFL. Everything's on video. I realize the legal process played out the way it did, and it took a while where he's pleaded no contest to any felony charge, where the felony charges were removed based on that plea deal that was arranged. Chad, based on the criminal aspect of the case being resolved through the court system and the video that we can see where the battery is taking place, even though he pleads no contest to this, I don't know how you don't immediately come down with the suspension in the same way that we would have for a betting issue with a player, which is announced and they preview this. They promote the announcement's going to come later this week through the media, through Schefter and others that will put this out as a tweet, and then a couple days later, the hammer comes down on certain players. This is also the same league that knew about the Kamara incident prior to kickoff of the Pro Bowl, the last time that they actually played some version of football instead of the flag football game that they have now and anything remotely close to the sport. They knew about this but held off on taking him into custody until after the game was played because he was out in Vegas for the Pro Bowl that week and that Sunday. So at minimum, he's getting 6 games based on the collective bargaining agreement. I think the video adds more to it, and I think the Saints have known this was coming because they've also added to the running back room. It's still a huge loss for New Orleans.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a half a season type thing, I would say, at minimum for Alvin Kamara.
Then the appeal comes.
My only hope in all this is that the NFL investigation does not start now because the legal process is played out and that they've already done all the research they need.
All of last year.
And now that they have the legal issues out of the way, now they can levy a punishment. My point is, I don't want them to say, all right, now we're going to start looking into it. You should have already looked into it.
They have.
You should know exactly what's going on and
Yes.
what your punishment's going to be. So should be a matter of days now before we know.
It was a huge story with Watson, and I understand why the suspension came just prior to the season so that they knew, and the football fans across the country knew if he was going to be suspended or not. And that took negotiating between both sides, and we know he settled those cases. But this took place in February or late January of 2022, and then he played the entire season. And now he's pleaded no contest. It's time to rule. It's not time to investigate. This has got to be wrapped up by now.
The NFL is great about creating events in the offseason, the schedule release, the draft, obviously. Another event could be the day where they announce big punishments. We just have one day right before the season, and we learn about Deshaun Watson a year ago or Alvin Kamara. We have an NFL Network special about it. We have a buildup of all-day coverage leading to it, and we announce all at once a few of the bigger suspensions across the league. That would be fun. I think that probably garner some ratings.
Chad, Nike, the deal with Kyrie Irving was up with Nike at the end of this past season, but they let it be known they weren't going to bring him back based on the anti-Semitism, the retweet, the controversy that he had in the feature movie that he promoted on his social media. He's now the chief creative officer, Kyrie is, of Anta, the sportswear company that is a mega company in China. Same could be said for Nike. And he's just recently signed a 3-year, $126 million contract to remain in Dallas after being traded and averaging 27 points. And he's now the CCO of Anta over in China, where he was making $11 million annually from Nike. And based on this deal, who knows what he's getting paid? There are 18 players currently from the NBA that are listed on their site as wearing the shoes. Players like Klay Thompson and Gordon Hayward, Rajon Rondo, James Wiseman among those. And now Kyrie is the face of the Chinese company.
Money makes hypocrites of us all. And this is yet another example of that. Kyrie Irving, I don't think he's signing up and saying everything that goes on in China is great and on the up and up. He's saying, you know what's great? A lot of money. And that's what he's making now. When Mark Cuban won't point out that China has a terrible human rights record, it's because he's making a lot of money off China. When people who cover the NBA and the media that won't write about China's involvement in the NBA and how hypocritical it is of the league, the players, the coaches, the owners, and everyone else, not to call it out, when they fall silent on that, they are hypocrites when they call out other human rights issues. So if you're going to stand for something, you got to stand for it consistently. And what Kyrie Irving is showing right now is what most people show in the end, that they'll stand for money. So he's standing for China and a China-based company because they're paying him the most money. It's really that simple.
Yeah, and if you just compare it to the way the Live Golf Tour was covered.
Same exact thing.
Saudi money. By the way, there's Saudi money invested in NFL teams right now, Washington. And or was. They've also got, I believe, the Nationals, and there's another hockey team, I believe, the Capitals.
Yeah.
They have like 5% ownership in some of these leagues. Not controlling ownership, but maybe eventually. That's another thing that Manfred's discussed, and Adam Silver, who's trying to kick that can down the road, but it may come sooner than later, based on the fact that in order to have expansions or new ownership, you need billionaires, not multimillionaires. And we know where the billions reside.
Yep.
Maybe eventually it's LeBron. He's the billionaire currently playing in the league. Or Chad, maybe it ends up being Clay. Who knows?
Could be.
Against
Mark
Clay's
Cuban. On his way. If he keeps feuding up like he is with Mark Cuban, eventually he may reach billionaire status.
So Jalen Kitna was kicked off campus and kicked off the Florida Gators football team for felony charges for child pornography. Son of John Kitna was supposed to be the rising star with the Gators. He's immediately kicked off. He has worked out a deal where he has the felony charges removed from his case, and he's entering the transfer portal. And the felony charges rose from information where he was sharing photos of underage girls on text exchange, and also had more on his computer or on his phone whenever the investigation took place. In the portal, I mean, will he get an opportunity? Yeah. Is it going to be at the level that we all expect? No. Chad, I think of this story and I think of Last Chance U is what I'm thinking with Kitna now, based on all of the issues that took place and the explaining that has to go on. There have been players that had, assault, rape charges, or things that were either expunged or things that followed them throughout their career that got a second chance. He'll get one, but realistically, it's going to come at such a low level that he's going to have to work his way back up and honestly work his way to clear his name based on the fact that the felony charges are there. There's no disputing the fact that he's worked out a deal to where they're not going to follow him, but it's going to follow him through the portal. If
you're a program that's looking at him, you got to really do your research on what is the level of his mental illness, because pedophilia is a mental illness and it's a crime. And you got to figure out what exactly happened to lead to him getting arrested for that and having it on his phone and computer before you ever allow him on your roster.
Yes. And it's not going to be on a roster that any fan is going to be watching anytime soon. Coming up, Dan Dockich joins us right here on Hot Mic.
Fitzgerald has been fired. Pat Fitzgerald, the beleaguered, the weirdo, I guess, or his weird players, has been fired by Northwestern University. And the Northwestern children, the players, are not happy about it. They are not taking it well. Well, I ask you, Northwestern players. In fact, I just put out a video to Northwestern players that are mad. And they're mad because, well, the old coach. The old coach got blank canned because, well, the players decided it was a good idea to get naked, do naked crawls, naked claps, naked soap up themselves in front of the shower and make players run through, because the players of Northwestern really are perverted. I mean, I'll never understand it. Now, I got guys saying, well, Bobby Knight, you guys hazed just in a different way, yelling and screaming. Yeah, you're right. We did. Tough. You don't like it? So what? But we never did the nudity thing. We never did the sexual assault thing. We never did the stuff, hey, we're going to slap you and dry hump you. At some point, the players, don't you agree, the players of Northwestern got to look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what? This is kind of on us. You know what? We caused a lot of this. You know what? We shouldn't have done that. Now, every time I see a Northwestern player from now on, I'm like, yeah, you're a weirdo. Used to be every time I saw a Northwestern player, I'd be like, man, you're a tough dude. You played for a tough coach, played for a high-end academic institution. I'd hire you in a second. Now I'm like, yeah, you got a bunch of weirdos running around there. Now I'm like, what in the hell are you doing there in the locker room at Northwestern? And I told you yesterday that this firing was coming because of this one reason. When you have to have outside people monitor your locker room because your players are perverts, because your coach allows it, because it's a culture of somehow, some way naked hazing. And no one's denying the hazing, by the way. So it's not like I'm speaking out of school. Sure, Fitzgerald, Fitz, whatever, is a great dude. Sure, he is the face of Northwestern. I would argue he's the most important figure in the history of Northwestern athletics. Nobody's not saying good dude. But he did what a lot of dumb meathead coaches do. He got on his little mount. He's got his little pillar. He's got his little kingdom. And on top of the kingdom is him. And he got to thinking he was untouchable, because no coach with any common sense would allow that in this day and age. I don't know what they were doing back when Bear Bryant was having guys out at camp. I don't know what they were doing when Kay first started. I don't know what they were doing at Indiana when Knight first started. I only know what I've been involved in, and it's never involved dry humping other men or nudity. Just saying. In the locker room. Naked. On my team. Never. Anywhere, actually, but never. Used to give you a ball tap once in a while out in public just to say hello. But I got to tell you, it's just the weirdest thing. And none of these players are taking any accountability. You know what they're doing? They're doing the Biden strategy. This went from the Bob Knight strategy of round up all the players, ex-players, whoever, and talk great things about this strong man. Look at his chin. Yeah, that's what they do.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Coming up in an hour, Clay Travis will join us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Right now, speaking of OutKick, you can join Dan Dockich every morning. Don't at me with Dan Dockich here on OutKick. He joins us by phone. Dan, appreciate the time, man. Hope things are well.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the phone. Today's my brother's birthday, and we're going to a family get-together here.
Nice.
And so I got to do it by phone.
It's all good. I mean, birthday counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Family time is important, that's for sure.
What?
Yeah.
What about the
12 years old as us, so, you know.
Beer or whiskey for the birthday today?
I'm going with Diet Coke.
Oh.
I'm going to cleanse a little bit here a little bit. Had a good weekend with the golf outing that we hosted, and I'm going to go with a little dry. I'm going to rinse out my liver, wring it out, and go a little healthy here.
The very rare Diet Coke cleanse about to take place with Dan Dockich. Dan, when this news about Pat Fitzgerald and what was going on at Northwestern broke, I thought about just blanket policies for programs and coaches in regards to hazing. What's acceptable? Is anything acceptable? How do you go about legislating what your team does to younger guys on the team? This is pretty extreme, some of the examples, what we heard about at Northwestern. But when you were coaching, what was your policy on hazing? What did you see? What did you not see? What would you tell your teams?
Yeah. You know, I was lucky. I played in high school with a group of kids that there was none of that stupidity. We had it at a rival school, actually, with some really incredible, vicious, idiotic stuff. And Coach Knight wasn't going to have any of that. But I tell you, the one thing that we did do, and I did it at Bowling Green, is we had the freshmen carry the bags. You know, with the managers, when you got off a bus, you're getting on a plane, the freshmen had to help with the bags because usually, at least certainly at Bowling Green, you couldn't travel with a lot of managers because you didn't have a lot of money for hotel rooms and things like that. So that was the only thing that I was ever involved in. And I'm lucky. I mean, I remember a good friend of mine went to go play at another school, and he came back in the summer. He's like, Jesus. He goes, these guys are hitting us, you know, all kind of stupid stuff. You asked me about a policy. You know, it's really interesting. I think in this age, you simply have to set golden rule, right? Treat others like you'd be treated yourself. There is no. I never believed one time in my life that any type of hazing meant anything, was any good, was just always ridiculous. And like as I said, I was very fortunate that none of that it never even crept in. I think we were all so scared of Coach Knight. They were like, hey man, we got a guy that, you know, we can all rally around disliking instead of, you know, trying to do stupid stuff. But when I read this, I thought Fitzgerald is gone. One of the things that kind of, from a coaching standpoint, that crept into the initial release where they suspended him for 2 weeks, and I couldn't believe I was reading this. They said, well, we're going to have an independent outside of Northwestern person monitor the locker room. And I thought to myself, wow, I mean, you're paying not only Fitzgerald, but you're paying coaches millions of dollars. These guys have years and years and years of experience, and you don't trust them. That's a broken culture. That's something that I don't know that any coach would go for or be okay with. And frankly, when I saw that, I thought that was so odd. It wasn't going to surprise me if Fitzgerald wouldn't have quit or wouldn't have, I guess maybe you agree to anything when you're trying to save your job. So, but then I think over the weekend, once I saw it was out there, specifics were out there, I thought, well, there's no way he's got to be fired. But the thing that I don't understand, I'll never understand, and maybe I'm just stupid, is how you keep all the assistants.
Yeah.
If, the president said the culture is broke. He said there's a broken culture, so we're getting rid of the coach. Well, you got assistants there, and football coaches are, you always hear about the room. Well, my wide receiver room is great. My quarterback room, my defensive line, whatever. Well, in college, those coaches are always with those kids. They're responsible for academics. They're responsible many times for behavior, certainly individual improvement. And you can't tell me that those assistant coaches did not know if, in fact, all this stuff was going on. So I didn't understand that part. And I also don't understand how's the AD survive all this. He's got a baseball program that's a train wreck. He's new, I get it. But I don't know how, a lot of times this goes to the AD. And if I'm the president, I'll tell you one person who isn't going to get fired is going to be me. I'm going to make damn sure all these people that are responsible for my athletic department are held accountable.
Well, and Dan, the coaching community has come to the defense of Pat Fitzgerald, talking about how great of a guy he is and all of that. Doesn't surprise me because coaches tend to defend other coaches at almost all times.
Yeah.
Is there any way he didn't know exactly what was going on? I'm hearing this about where the coaches aren't around the locker room a lot. Maybe he didn't know. He's acting like he didn't know in the investigation. Is there any chance that he had no idea about any of this?
Well, let me address the first part first.
We lost him there.
Defend the living hell out of him. I'm sorry, you got me still?
Yeah, we got you
now, Dan.
Yeah, defend him all you'd like. But, okay, great. Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah, he's a great family man. But did he know about the hazing? I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, you can tell me how great a guy he is. Did he know about it? Is there any way? Yeah, I mean, if it happened in dorms, if it happened in off campus, I suppose. But what I read, not only did he know, he somewhat participated in it with that clapping stuff. Now, I don't know exactly what that clapping and making kids run. I don't know if I view that as hazing or not. That's just, maybe I'm just old school, but the naked crawls and stuff like that, if you were going to put gun to head and I had to give you a percentage, I'd go 95% that he may have not known the actual extent. He may have never seen it, but being there as long as he was, I would have a really, really, really hard time believing he did. Now, if somebody came to me years later and said, hey, Coach, back, when you coached us, we had this thing in the dorm where, we made, so-and-so run through the dorm naked, and this was before social media. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that, but I don't. The only thing that makes me question the whole thing is, sounds like it's been going on for a while, and you're telling me that it's just coming out now. I'm not saying it matters. It doesn't matter. But I do, if you're going to have questions about certain things, I'm like, oh, wait a second, man. All anybody wants to do is talk and take pictures and all. But look, if it happened, whether he knew it or not, in the world that we live in, the coach is going to be gone, and it's not totally unfair. And I'm a coach, and I usually defend coaches, but I don't really, if you allow that to happen, and you're either too stupid to know the times we're in, which I don't think he is, or you just made a hell of a mistake, cost you $40 million.
Can you defend anything that Bob Huggins is currently doing with West Virginia?
No.
And how does he claim, Dan, he's doubled down on it again, how does he claim that he didn't resign when he met with his team and announced he was resigning, and the statement specifically mentions that he is resigning and retiring from the game of basketball? This was last month.
Well, I asked my brother that. He's a contract attorney, and he said, look, here's all this is. He is fighting language. He's fighting letter of the law and language.
Language he wrote,
and
though.
what that means is he's simply saying, I want to get my money, or I want to get reinstated, because whatever I did didn't fall under the guise of what the contract stated meant resignation. That's all he's doing. I mean, he's not, but I said this on my show because I know this to be true from a number of people. One of the reasons, they reached out to John Beeline. He said, no, a lot of different guys said, nuh-uh, because everybody knows that the Huggins family has been doing this. The Huggins family had a plan, and the plan was going to be a couple boosters, Huggins, some former players. He was going to go 60-day rehab, sit out the year, show that he was, probably give a bunch of money to give a bunch of money to different charities, fundraiser for a cancer deal that he's been really good with over there, and then make a triumphant return. That was his plan. And that, you saw they hired the interim head coach. But that plan went south for some reason, and I'm not sure exactly the reason. I've heard the reason is basically the AD and the president, in no uncertain terms, made it be known that under no circumstances, you can go to the Vatican and be blessed by the Pope sober and, do Mother Teresa type works, and we're not having you back. And that's when you saw this reinstatement thing. That's what I've been told, but I've been told all along that the family has been working to circumvent, and a plan was in place to try to get him back there within in a year, whenever the season was over.
It's a bizarre story where he's saying he never resigned.
Crazy.
But just all the reports, the players that said he spoke to the team. It's a dispute over language, but it's his language. Like he wrote this, or his wife wrote the statement, but he at least, he released the statement after the controversial discussion and language used on Cincinnati radio on West Virginia letterhead on their social media account.
Right.
I'm assuming his wife didn't write that. So, if we're going to discuss what he did and didn't do, it's bizarre to me.
He's saying she did, and I had a guy that knows him actually call me and try to convince me, because I've been a big basher of this whole thing, very loud,
right?
And it's blanked a lot of people off. He's like, Dan, well, what's the difference between somebody you don't know saying you resign? That's not you resigning. I go, okay. I go, yeah, you're right. My buddy down the street could send a letter to OutKick saying that I've resigned. But then you ask me, did you resign? Or, it's just incredibly bizarre. There is no merit to it. I love that West Virginia basically laughed at him.
Yeah, me too.
And that's all he's doing. He's got a lawyer that simply is trying to find a loophole in the language of his contract and of the resignation, whether it was him or his wife, or all of a sudden what verbally isn't a resignation. I don't know, but that's what I've been told, that he's doing everything he can now that he does not think he's going to be reinstated. There was a time I've been told that he thought he was going to get reinstated. He was going to go to, come to Jesus, dry out, whatever. And that's where you saw, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you did, you saw his daughter's letter.
Oh, yeah.
Where she talked about a 60-day rehab, and that was part of it in there. Well, that became his plan. And my sources tell me that plan, they told him, hey, that's a great plan. We hope you do it. We hope you're okay. And we hope you move on with the rest of your life, but it ain't going to be here. And that's when you saw that release. I can't imagine this sees a courtroom. I can't imagine that there's anything to this. But he's trying to fight certain languages in contracts.
The great Dan Dockich with us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
Dan, do we care at all about Kyrie Irving taking all the money from Anta, this Chinese-based apparel company, or is it just another in a long line of stories of capitalism where people are willing to take a lot of money from virtually anyone, and we see it time and time again in sports?
Don't you think there are just certain guys that have earned the right for us to say, yeah, that guy's just an idiot, and it doesn't matter what he does? That's kind of how I feel about Irving. Somebody else, like all of a sudden if Roy McIlroy did it, you'd be like, hey, you freaking hypocrite. What are you doing, Tiger Woods, if he did it? But I feel like, with Kyrie Irving, it's just like, yeah, he's, there's an idiot. And he's not an idiot. He's a very smart guy by all accounts. But when I saw that, I thought to myself, I wonder what this does. I wonder if people say, no, hold on here a second. Whoa. You don't be throwing this China stuff in our face. Like, okay, we all talk about NBA taking money, but we don't ever see the money. We don't ever, in real time. We don't. But now with Irving taking the money and taking the shoe, you're going to see the shoes. You're like, wait a second here. I don't know, but I do think Irving has earned the he's just a moron. Who cares what he does kind of moniker instead of there being a moralistic, hypocritical backlash because he's just become that guy.
Yeah, I think that's why there's a headline involving his name because he's now the 18th player to take money from this company. Klay Thompson's not being bashed.
Well, he's also the chief whatever officer, creative officer, or whatever.
Yeah, but it was
for
a headline
company.
prior to that being negotiated.
Yeah.
But it's Kyrie. It's not Klay Thompson isn't being mentioned in these headlines. At least I haven't noticed it. Gordon Hayward hasn't been mentioned in these headlines. James Wiseman hasn't. They're all a part of this shoe company.
Yeah, and when you look at Kyrie, again, he's also morphed into the guy that people, whether you're for Kyrie or against Kyrie, he makes news. He's become a Kardashian in many ways. I mean, what he does, now he plays basketball, and I don't know what the Kardashians do. I guess they run businesses, but, the idea for being famous just because you're famous, think about what has Kyrie Irving done on a basketball court in the last 5 years that has made you go, oh, man, he's a really good basketball player. I mean, I understand he is, and he's put some numbers, but there isn't anything there. But he has probably risen in, what's that thing, a Q rating or people knowing who you are, probably more in the last 5 years just because of being, I don't know, a guy that.
A flat earther.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Dan Dockich's
Thanks,
Q rating is very high. Enjoy the golf, hit 'em straight, Dan, and enjoy your brother's birthday. We're back at it with Primary Complaint next.
What is your primary complaint?
When people pop their knuckles.
Primary complaint is chewing with your mouth open. Yuck.
I would say when you're getting off an airplane and people in the back try and sprint to the front, especially like late at night, like you don't have a connecting flight, just wait like everybody else. I'd say that's fine.
Small portions, big bill. Yeah, if the quality's good, it's okay. But if there's small portions and I got a big fat bill, not a thing,
Sun Country Airlines canceling our flight less than 8 hours before we're supposed to leave.
I've never even heard of Sun Country Airlines in my life.
Velcro.
Velcro? Why? What about it?
The sound.
Oh, like nails on a chalkboard for you.
I'm a kindergarten teacher, and to hear that Velcro.
Time to teach them how to tie their shoes.
When they don't cross the road when no cars are driving.
They're just waiting for the light.
Yeah, like a normal person.
Yeah, you got to break the rules a little bit.
We're right from New York City. We know how to walk.
Really upset. Ben Jones is no longer with the Titans, but more importantly, I'm upset the Titans didn't draft a wide receiver in the top 2 rounds. We need receivers, guys. Come on, tighten up.
So what do you think about Will Levis? Was that a good move or a bad move?
Ooh, that's a tough call. Time will tell. But I think we needed a receiver more.
Smack their gum, chew with their mouth open and smack their gum.
Okay.
That with chips and everything else, yeah.
Liars.
Liars. Okay. Has anyone lied to you recently?
No.
Have you lied?
Always.
One of the biggest pet peeves is not knowing your manners. Like, not having respect or thank you, sir, ma'am.
My biggest pet peeve is when you don't push your chair in after you leave a table. That's my biggest pet peeve. Really is.
So like when people want to speak to you and they're like you to me, but they start walking out of the other room into different rooms and they keep talking like, I am supposed to understand. I can't hardly understand people when their back is turned to me, when they're not talking right at me. So when you're getting into different rooms and you keep talking like, yeah, blah, 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 it must be my dog talking to me.
There's a crane over every building. There's a truck.
There's a whole something.
Yeah.
So let's get the streets fixed and get those things done. Time's wasted. Let's go.
A dirty house.
Dirty house. Like, are you a shoes off at the front door kind of guy?
Off front, yes, ma'am.
I hate it when centre backs don't bat the odd one. Do you know,
What?
when the centre backs go up to try and catch the ball all the time, they should bat the odd one. siblings are pet peeves, to be honest with you. Just looking at him, he's a pet peeve.
I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I like to get along with others. I kind of leave people in their place. When people don't follow the social construct, it really upsets me. Example, when you stand up on an airplane, right, when it lands, and then try to push past people down the line, you know what orders you're supposed to go in. That's the part of the social contract. When you're grocery shopping and you have your cart and you don't take it back to the cart delivery spot, but you just leave it by there beside the parking spot, taking up someone else's spot, violating the social contract. Do what you're supposed to. Yeah, do your civic duty. Follow through with what your parents told you to do.
Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network, which includes this great radio partner you may be listening to. Also, our YouTube channel. Just search out OutKick. Hope to subscribe. And if you've done that, certainly hit that like button. Hit the reminder that we go live each and every day at 3 o'clock Eastern, and you can join Chad in the chat. Just hopping already.
It's
going strong. Clay joins us in about 40 minutes.
Chat's been good. Chat's been productive today. I feel like we're getting a lot of good work done in the chat.
Yeah, good. Chad is getting work done with the chat.
It's my forum today.
Our forum each and every week to air our top grievance is primary complaint.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for Hot Mike's primary complaint.
Guys, my primary complaint this week, there are some like insects that I just look at and I think, what is the purpose of this insect on planet Earth? A cockroach, a mosquito, lice, a tick, gnats. I feel the same way whenever I'm scrolling through name website A, B, or C, and at the bottom on the closer, the bottom portion of all the ads, there is I'm inundated with random headlines and clickbait stuff that I don't even consider clickbait. I don't know what purpose they hold with these ads, like earn up to $150,000 this year, and then the claim is just so outlandish that it's just not going to hold up. Or you have like the foot fungus ad or something crazy as to a remedy to a health problem that, I mean, let's face it, we're not suffering from. I don't understand the purpose of it and why, if you're on a site, why the site would want that crap on their site. That's my primary complaint. I don't hear you either, Chad.
Oh, it's probably because I muted my mic. That was on me. My bad. Foul on me. Foul on this guy right here. So my primary complaint this week is the fact that there is a Kleenex epidemic going on in my household currently. Now, we've had some bad allergies in the house. Of course, we've had colds in the past. A lot of things happen when you've got two young kids in the house. But my issue is that both my 8- and 4-year-old, they feel that they only need to blow their nose once into every Kleenex. And this is not some man-sized nose-blowing thing, right? This is a very little, maybe droplets of mucus get on one Kleenex. And that Kleenex is then discarded to where it looks like I've got sheets laid out all over the house of just Kleenexes that could be used a number of times, that have been used once barely. And I've got to have a new Kleenex budget in my house. You know, you got to pay the lights, got to pay the utilities, and now I've got to have a separate Kleenex budget. That's how much this is costing me to continue to buy a box of Kleenex. Now, a little show and tell. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. Here is one of my Kleenexes that I have in my bag right now. This thing will disintegrate.
From last week?
It will look like cremated ashes of a human by the time I am done with this Kleenex. I still, right now, even if it's curled, I've probably got 8 to 9 more nose blowings into this one Kleenex before I discard it. I could get through one box of Kleenex with 8 colds over the course of a year, the way I use Kleenexes. So I'm on the other extreme. But what I'd like is for my children to meet me in the middle. Instead of just blowing once and discarding or blowing 1,000 times and letting it disintegrate like I do, just meet me in the middle. Maybe 5 or 6 good, sturdy, healthy blows into the Kleenex before you throw it away. Just that's all I'm asking for. And if that happens, maybe this will no longer be a primary complaint. But as of today, it is my primary complaint.
Chad, my advice to you, you're talking about the Kleenex budget, but you should just start using the toilet paper instead, and you could account for that in the budget, especially with the kids. You know, like one ply, that's going to get thrown away pretty quickly. So that's just a suggestion.
Davey
Take
knows
it or leave it.
too.
There is something, though, about blowing the nose into some toilet paper that I don't even like. And it's not even like the roughness of it on the face. It's just I don't like the process of tearing off toilet paper and trying to guess the right amount to blow my nose when needed. I'd much rather have a nice, symmetrical Kleenex.
I get that.
I just want to blow into the Kleenex more than once.
That's why you put the Kleenexes out of reach, for the kids. It's like, or get a child locked door and make them use the tissue or the toilet paper there.
Have you ever gotten a good sense of accomplishment when you really fill up a Kleenex, when you blow your nose a lot with a cold, and you get done and it's just like barely even exists anymore? It's just all wadded up, and I'm like, man, I did a really good job with that Kleenex.
I don't think that's ever crossed my mind
it
once.
checks a box for me. Checks a box for me where I'm like, man, Chad, you did a great job with that Kleenex, bro.
There are only
Good
a handful
work.
of products that are called, like any tissue is called Kleenex.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. They cornered the market.
Is
No
Q-tip
doubt.
They
the
took
same?
over the entire
Q-tip,
market.
yes.
Okay.
Same. Coke can be said. Like
that's kind of a Southern thing. I feel like.
Universal, but it covers everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you get more backlash on the Coke than you do the others.
That's a very Southern specific thing. Like every soft drink is a Coke. We got Cokes over here. My family, a lot of my family will say that too. I need my kids though to have that sense of accomplishment when they get done with the Kleenex and not just barely wipe their nose once and throw it on the ground.
They want you to be happy that they're actually using one.
I mean, we got a coffee table it was just filled with Kleenexes. I probably could have stuffed back in the box. That's how little used each Kleenex was. Anyway.
Davey, your primary complaint.
My primary complaint. I mean, I guess this one somewhat applies when you're sick. It makes it even worse. My primary complaint, though, is when you're laying in bed and you're watching TV and you have the remote, and then 5 minutes later, the remote is gone. You don't know which void it fell into. You don't know, is it wrapped up in this blanket? Is it in the sheet? Did it fall on the floor? You think if it fell on the floor, you'd at least hear the sound of the thud. But then you're just rolling around in the dark for 10 minutes trying to find it. And you're thinking to yourself, I know it was here a minute ago. Where the hell could it have gone? And you just can't find it. And so then you just have to throw away your TV and get a new one.
Yeah, that's the sensible thing is to throw the TV away. I have the same issue on a recliner. Like my recliner, I'll put I have 3 remotes that I use, and there's the little one for the Amazon Fire.
Yep.
And I'll just put that in my lap.
It's way too small.
And I'll move around, and it'll slide into the side, and I have to go to the back of the recliner and see if it's fallen all the way back underneath the recliner.
What is
That's
the purpose
frustrating part
of
to me.
those, the very
tiny
small
little
space? What's the purpose of that? I don't need to get to the interior of the recliner.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, why? Yeah, we should just lock it up. There should not be a way for it to fall in.
Yeah, I mean, there's not one on a bed. You just if you roll
but
off the
even
bed,
if
you roll off the bed.
you could flip it over and get in there.
Yeah,
if you're real handy, and you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fix this recliner. And you're going to get in there with your tools, and you could still pop it up and get under the hood.
One of the things I've always thought about, Davey, is getting one of the, like the Find My Phone or whatever.
Yep.
They should do that. They should have that access for a remote. Because you can find your phone on a laptop, right? You can search things and you can see exactly where it is. They should have that for TV and streaming service remotes because they're all different. They're all different sizes, and the smallest ones are gone forever. I mean, they're under a refrigerator or somewhere, especially in Chad's house.
Yeah,
the Kleenex.
The house in general, especially with
Kleenex.
kids,
Yeah.
I could see that being an issue where maybe a kid carries it into a completely different room than where it is. I mean, I guess for this one, though, it'd have to be pretty precise if I'm just looking at the area of my queen-size bed, you know?
Yeah, I'll say this, too. I have not – I've lived in the house I live in currently for over 10 years now. Never had a TV in the bedroom. And, like, there are times where I'm like, that was a really dumb decision. Because there are so many times I wish I could just fall asleep in bed watching something, and instead I fall asleep on a couch watching something.
Yeah.
And then the process of picking yourself up and going to bed, then suddenly you can't go back to sleep as quick.
What is it called whenever you wake up and you still like you're paralyzed almost?
Oh,
like you can't move, but you're trying to wake up out of
That's
a sleep.
like a bad dream, right?
Kind of like
Where
in a
you're trying to get away
trance
from someone.
But like I've had like 2 or 3 times, not just over the course of whenever. Like I'm conscious, but I can't get up. It's weird. I'm still asleep, but I know I can't wake up, and I can't move.
I don't know that I've ever had that feeling.
Were you trying to break out of your sleep?
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever. Maybe I've never slept that well.
Maybe it was the
Is
answer.
this
I
like
don't know.
sleep paralysis?
Yeah, sleep
I
paralysis
guess that's what it's
sounds
called.
right.
Yeah. Who knows what I'm doing? And someone walks in the bedroom and they're like,
Yeah.
"What's
so
going on in here?"
They said this is like when you were in sleep mode, but your brain is active.
That's it. Yeah, I've
You suffer from sleep paralysis, Hut. We now know what to call it.
I would consider that like just a bad dream, but I guess there is a certain term.
It's
for
not a
everything.
dream though, because when you wake up, you're in like this fog, and you know what is like. I don't remember dreams. That's why I know it's not a dream.
Well, how long are you typically in this state?
I don't know exactly how. It's a matter of minutes. But
Oh,
like,
that's-
You're awake, but you
Okay.
can't move.
my eyes are closed. Yeah, I can't. Like I'm just trying to
Oh.
like bust through a wall.
I would see a
almost.
doctor.
I mean, it
That
sounds.
doesn't sound safe.
It
That
sounds
sounds
like
more
you're
intense
sleeping
than
better.
just the sleep paralysis
it's fine.
symptoms I'm looking
Hutton
at.
is sleeping better than any human I've ever known. That's great.
Davey, I'm going to add this to my list. Previously, it was a list of 2. I'm going to die of either heart failure or cancer, and I will now add this to my list of sleep paralysis.
Solid prediction.
It does say, though, again, like you do that deep dive down WebMD, you think you're dying from anything, but it does say that rarely is sleep paralysis linked to deep underlying psychiatric problems. So you at least have that going for you.
I'm getting a little tingly sensation in my little toe, on each little toe.
Both?
Yeah, at times, like at night, and I don't know if it's from
Chad's
like
going to be our Deion Sanders.
being on my feet
amputation.
or if I've got diabetes. I don't. It's one of the two. Like I can't tell if it's like a bone muscular thing,
I think
or
this
if it's
is
a
like,
blood thing.
It's like the foot version of Tommy John surgery from all
Yeah,
your time
like
on
I
the
can't
baseball
really.
field.
There'd be times where I can't really move just my little toe and my like ring finger toe, my ring toe, right? The one next.
Chad actually has a ring on.
What is it you call the one that? It's a tattoo actually of a ring on that toe. The whatever the toe is next to the little toe. Those two get like a little tingly sometimes at night. This is the
you may also have issues.
This is why I have the forum of the YouTube chat. I
Yeah.
throw it out there, and I'm sure someone's going to know. I'm sure the first response is going to be, "You're dying."
Is there no one else in studio that suffers from sleep paralysis?
David in
Yeah.
the YouTube chat says sleep paralysis by analysis.
No hands are up.
No,
so-
we've got one.
Oh.
We got one. Collins had that happen before.
I remember when I was like a freshman in high school, we were running miles around the track of our high school for conditioning, and we had a senior player who finished a mile, and he was going, "Guys, my heart is hurting. Is anyone else's heart hurting right now? Is anybody else's heart hurting?" And we're all staring at him like, no, you might want to get that checked out, Eddie. I'm not sure what's going on with your heart right now. I thought he's having a heart attack.
Was he
But it was a
high?
similar thing where you're like, does anyone else not have the same sleep paralysis I'm talking about? And I'm thinking, you're a high school kid. I don't know that your heart should be hurting.
Did you see the story of the guy who ran a marathon with no training whatsoever, and he was like boasting at a bar with his buddies that he could run it in under like 5 hours or whatever it was, and he did it within seconds remaining. And he was, he had remember when Clay ran the marathon and he had like the
bloody nipples?
Yeah, the nipple chafing and all that. This guy had it within like 5 miles, and he
pushed through.
He finished.
He had to have been pretty fit and an
He
athlete
finished.
going into it.
He did not look in shape based on how he was doing it.
Well,
but
he's
he had
got
this
a
drive
will to win, unlike anyone.
He's willing to just go. He's like a dog chasing a tennis ball that'll just do it no matter what until they croak. Maniac is how I would describe him.
Terry in the YouTube chat says, I have sleep paralysis too. Hutton, you've got a club.
Yeah.
We should start a separate
Doesn't
YouTube
happen
chat
often.
of just people that suffer from sleep paralysis.
I wonder if it's
This is like a support group for you.
because it doesn't always happen. I used to take Ambien. It doesn't always happen on Ambien. Like it's happened within the last 3 months.
Look at
probably.
this. Allie says Kendall Jenner has sleep paralysis. They did an entire episode of the Kardashians on sleep paralysis.
Wow.
Hutton, you're basically a Kardashian, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. That script's already been written, is that what you're saying?
You're a family member. Just you and Kendall Jenner have this in common.
Yeah. Well, congrats.
If only your bank accounts
Congrats
were
to
similar.
Kendall. Yeah, no doubt. Coming up in the next hour, plenty of headlines, plus Clay Travis is going to join us in a little over 25 minutes. And we also have a big discussion coming up later. The Washington Commanders and former owner Daniel Snyder, which that change of ownership still needs to be approved. It's reportedly going to happen later this month. ESPN reporting that it was Snyder and members of the NFL that leaked the Gruden emails, all for different benefits. Crazy details. That's coming up, plus more here on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And
I mean,
what he reposted
he did
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Coming up in 20 minutes, Clay Travis joins us as he does each and every Wednesday on the show. If you're joining us on YouTube, we say hello. You can certainly chime in the chat. Chad is there currently. I need to jump in there every now and then.
Yeah, you need to. It's a wonderful land with just full of information, opinions, banter,
links.
Support. We got
Flags.
support for sleep paralysis going on right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
A little bit of everything.
Chad, how surprised are you that they're firing Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern with cause? Now, there's $42 million, I believe, left on his contract with the current deal. But based on the details and the fact that 3 days after they announced a 2-week suspension without pay, it goes from that to firing him with cause. Doesn't there have to be another detail or two that is so massive that it leads them to jump to that after the president of Northwestern met with the board of directors, met with faculty and students, but specifically the board of directors who he's going to report to come to the next conclusion, which was he's out. And we're going to fight the battle that will come where Fitzgerald will fight for the money remaining on his contract. Firing him without cause, he's getting the remainder of that contract.
Well, I think that there's a reason that Pat Fitzgerald in his statement said, I've retained legal counsel to fight for my legal rights.
They also admitted they could not show or prove whether or not he knew.
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah,
is
that's bizarre.
They released a statement saying that after the over 6-month-long investigation, we can't prove that he definitely had knowledge of it, but we think he probably should have had knowledge of it and what was going on, so he's going to be suspended for 2 weeks. Then a weekend passed, a report came out in the student newspaper, and suddenly 2 weeks isn't enough. He's fired, and not only are you fired, you're fired with cause. The only way Northwestern should do this is to fire him with cause. If you weren't going to fire him with cause, paying him $42 million to not coach or whatever the buyout was going to be is a ridiculous decision by them. So if you're going to fire someone over a scandal, that scandal needs to reach the level of firing with cause, especially when it's Pat Fitzgerald, this notable alum, well-liked, I wouldn't even say liked, loved part of the university. For 26 years he spent at Northwestern. So if you're going to fire a guy like that, it better be for cause, and you better save the university some money in doing so. Pat Fitzgerald's coming back and saying, you just released a long investigation and a report that says we can't prove that he knew. My attorneys are now going to take that information that you have presented and show you that I didn't know, and you're going to pay me some money. Where does this all end up? I think they're going to end up paying him some sort of settlement in the end.
Somewhere in the middle.
And he's going to get money. But, yeah, I mean, from a Northwestern perspective, if you make the move to fire him, I think you absolutely have to do it with cause.
Well, so there was a move.
At least attempt to do it that way.
The first report, there was a player and then another player validating what the source was telling the Daily Northwestern. Then it went to 11 players, and that came out with the firing. There has to be something within that jump, because if the only way, if you're looking for a way out of Pat Fitzgerald's deal and you have to fire him with cause, you don't start by suspending him for 2 weeks and then you come to some agreement with him based on the suspension in the middle of summer with your coach who has agreed to whatever it was and doing that without pay. And then the next thing is the firing him without cause. I don't know what came out in the last 3 days other than other people coming forward. And I'm just trying to, in the common sense world, which is hard to find, how they made that jump with cause, but they can't prove if he knew or not. That to me is a key detail, and we haven't heard any more details from the president, who's been very vocal through statements and other things.
No, but the president did say more came forward with additional details since that investigation. And I would have to think that some of those additional details involve Pat Fitzgerald directly being around for some of it if they're going to make this move with cause.
But they did a 6-month investigation.
The 6-month investigation didn't find it. Also, they only interviewed a little over 50. That sounds like a lot, 50 people. But from 2006 to now, 17 years as a head coach.
You're right.
50-plus people, that's not a lot of interviews over 6 months to conduct.
Chad, I think Tommy Rees is a great candidate for this gig. He's a former grad assistant at Northwestern. His father has ties there as well, working there. He's the former OC at Notre Dame, so he knows the academic eligible requirements that Northwestern would also have in place. And it's a very low expectation gig for a young up-and-coming coach that's looking for an opportunity to be in that spot. I mean, when I say low expectation, Pat Fitzgerald went like 3-24 over the last 3 years. That was non-COVID. It's not like it was a huge success rate. And, I mean, record-wise, they're losing Mr. Northwestern. They're not losing the coach that was getting them above and beyond where they had been. I mean, that happened, 2018 is whenever he was coach of the year. He's had good moments, but I would look down the route of the up-and-coming offensive coordinator version of what they want to do. Now, here's the struggle in that. He's now at Alabama, and one season with success at Alabama gets him a better gig than the Northwestern football job. So do you pick up the phone and call and ask for permission now, even though you've named the interim? Or do you just wait because here at Northwestern, we don't give a damn about sports?
It's a great question. I think they're going to end up settling on someone young when they end up hiring. So Tommy Rees would definitely fit that description at his age and really lack of experience up until now to take a chance on someone. I'm going to throw out two names, though, that I think would be absolute home runs from a cultural standpoint and an experience standpoint at a place like Northwestern.
Okay.
With the academic rigors, playing in major high-level conference college football. One is David Shaw, who currently is doing nothing. That's out at Stanford. He's 50 years old. If you want someone who's shown he can win at an academically prestigious school, David Shaw is your guy with what he did at Stanford for so long.
It's a good one.
I think that would make a lot of sense. That would be a grand slam for Northwestern. Don't know if they can make it happen. Don't know what David Shaw wants to do next. The other one that I thought about was Dave Clawson at Wake Forest. Northwestern's in a better conference situation in the Big Ten than in the ACC. Does Dave Clawson feel like he's done everything he can? He just lost Sam Hartman, a stud, once in every 10 to 20 years type player, possibly, for Wake Forest. He transfers out and is going to Notre Dame. So is Dave Clawson sitting around thinking, maybe I'm tapped out here, had a lot of success, I can go somewhere else that's academically high-minded, but be in a better conference at Northwestern? Dave Clawson would be another great fit for Wake Forest. Tommy Rees Hutton is the more realistic of candidates, and I think they'll eventually settle for someone young.
Like that
hasn't had any head coaching experience or very little, or even if they have, it's been at a lower level. But if you want to swing big with guys that I think make sense for that program and have done it at a high level at academically minded places, David Shaw at Stanford, Dave Clawson, two Daves. Dave Clawson at Wake Forest would fit great at Northwestern.
Chad, Kirby Smart, he's rattled. And next week here in Nashville, SEC Media Days, they will be on center stage. And it sounds as though he's going to be extremely defensive and not proactive with sending a new tone or a new message about all the off-field issues within the program since he got there. What do you make of the way Georgia, the way Kirby Smart is approaching this, knowing that next week there is going to be plenty of questions about everything from street racing to assault that will be on the table and he's going to be asked about?
Well, this is an old play from a very old playbook that Kirby Smart's going about right now. It's screaming about one thing over here, so you don't look at what's over here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is what the University of Georgia is doing. They are sending a retraction letter to the AJC, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, because they feel they were uncharacteristically depicted in a way that they are light on sexual assault in one story from the AJC that's separate of all the traffic incidents that led to 2 members of their program's death, separate of all that. And even Kirby Smart says, yeah, we got a problem with guys speeding and traffic issues around here, but we take it very seriously about sexual assault, and we think that this story is factually incorrect from the AJC. So they have sent something to them saying, take it down, retract it, whatever. But what Kirby Smart is showing right now is that this has gotten to him. Because this is back-to-back national championship winning head coach Kirby Smart that's had to spend an entire offseason reading negative headline after negative headline about his program. Coming to Nashville next week for SEC Media Days, he's going to get some uncomfortable questions, not just about the sexual assault stuff, which I thought, by the way, his quote was really good in what he said about it, and I believe him on it. And I think that Georgia thinks they're in the right on this and that the AJC screwed some things up. I believe what they're saying on that. At least I believe that they believe those things, and they're not just lying about it. But what's telling is what they're not talking about in this and what they're not demanding retractions on. And that is the fact that I've said since these stories started popping that their program has turned Athens, Georgia into the set of the next Fast and the Furious movie. And that is an issue that he acknowledges in his complaints about the AJC. That has to be remedied. There are cultural problems within the Georgia program. Even Kirby Smart cannot refute that with what's been happening. But here's the good news for Kirby Smart. None of it matters with his own school, fan base, boosters, anyone until they start losing. And I still see a roster stacked with 4- and 5-star players that Hutton, I don't think he's going to lose anytime soon. So this is going to be a big talking point at SEC Media Days. He's going to have to answer some questions about it. And then they're going to get right back to winning on the field, and Georgia people aren't going to care because the talking points are going to be this fall about Georgia playing again for a chance to get into the college football playoff and win a 3rd straight national title.
Totally agree. It's the street racing aspect of this is not University of Georgia and no one else. This is a statewide issue. The governor ran and pushed a bill through to raise the penalty for street racing across the state. Specifically, they were having issues in the Atlanta area during COVID. And they raised it from what was a very minimum fine if you were caught doing this to where you could serve up to 12 months in jail. You know, the old 1129 or whatever it is in county jail. $1,000 plus fine would be also added to that. They have an issue across the state. That's why he acknowledged it, because it's been an edict from the top down, from the state representatives and from the governor himself. And I'm thinking to myself here, that has to be on the forefront of what he's going to say in his opening statement. It has to be, because that's the message of the state of Georgia, not the University of Georgia.
Yeah. No,
I don't know how you ignore it.
I think that he's going to come in very prepared. And he's going to have a statement ready about it. And he's going to say that in his opening remarks. And he's going to hope that what he says in the statement is going to lead to a lack of questions about it, or he can refer back to his opening statement.
Yeah.
But I do think that Kirby Smart is smart enough to come into this thing with a prepared statement, and he's going to acknowledge an issue at play. He's also going to acknowledge that we take it very seriously, that what's going on, and we've talked to our players about it, we take all this stuff very seriously. So this was the first strike levied by Georgia going into media days about this separate report about a lackadaisical approach to sexual assault with the football program, that they're refuting and they're demanding a retraction on that story. That's just step one of this. The rest is going to be answering questions and talking about the street racing issues.
Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, retracting the decision that was made to remove the All-Star game out of Atlanta due to new voting laws that were put in place. and the controversy there that was stirred up by the vocal minority and by one side versus the other, that they responded to the mob instead of just sticking with the fans. He said that Atlanta is under consideration for the 2025 All-Star Game, and that's where they have it right now. He wasn't going to speak further because they were also considering Chicago with the Cubs at Wrigley, Baltimore, and Toronto. All of those haven't hosted the All-Star Game since Atlanta hosted the All-Star Game in 2000. But the Braves were supposed to host it in 2021. They moved it to Colorado. And just by acknowledging that they're under consideration, Chad, isn't this Manfred saying that, hey, we're back in Atlanta, and it's going to be sooner rather than later for the 2025 All-Star Game? I think it's more about keeping the other fan bases at bay while they kick the can down the road to host the All-Star Game, because Atlanta's going to get it.
Well, it's an acknowledgement that he's saying we won the initial headline and the momentary headline from mainstream media when we canceled on Atlanta for the All-Star Game with the Voting Rights Act that happened, the bill that was put into place. And now, years later, well, we don't really care about it. It doesn't matter anymore. That's kind of gone away. We're not talking about it. So Atlanta's fair game again. It was a ridiculously bad decision to begin with. And while Rob Manfred's never going to admit it being a bad decision, the fact that he's coming back now in such a short amount of time and saying, yeah, we're considering them for 2025, that's as close as you're going to get to an admission of guilt on that decision. And it's the right decision to bring Atlanta back into the mix. It was the wrong decision to pull the game from that city before.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you remember that? I mean, they were comparing and contrasting the voting laws in Georgia versus Colorado, where they moved it to Coors Field, and they were virtually identical to what the new law was becoming in Georgia. And the mainstream media didn't, complain about that the way they did in Atlanta, even though they moved it to a location that had virtually the same setup. Crazy.
Yeah, it's all so predictable, too.
Clay Travis joins us next. Always a great discussion here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
Of male advantage plaguing women's sports, it only recently came to light, I feel like, for so many, including myself. I was really only became aware of this when I was slapped across the face with it in regards to Leah Thomas. But as you alluded to, this is something that you had experience of. You were well ahead of your time. I mean, 43 years ago, you saw this. And so would you be able to touch on what that experience looked like competing against the East Germans?
And we would have East German athletes turning up to things like, even like the Olympics, and we'd never, ever seen them before. And they would literally arrive and smash world records. They looked and sounded like, very masculine. They had deep voices, very large Adam apple, bad skin, through no fault of their own. I've never had a problem with these individuals. They were pawns of a horrible system. The people I have a big problem with is the IOC. And they allowed this to happen for 20 years. They even had East German doctors sitting on international doping panels. So every time we came up with a way to try and catch them, they would find a way to avoid being caught. And this was allowed to go on for 2 decades. So imagine the number of females that missed out. However, those females only missed out at international competitions, and they predominantly missed out in swimming, track and field, and rowing. What we've got now is 10 times worse, because this is happening across every single sport, at every single level, in every single country. So I've been pushing very hard to say, right, we need to have a female classification, however that looks. Me, ideally, I'd love to bring back sex tests. And then an open and inclusive category so that everyone is still welcome in sport. Because just like you, I'm sure, you want people to do sport. You want people to be physically active, to be healthy, because it helps us, both our body and our minds, and in a world at the moment with mental health, particularly in young girls, through the roof, we need people to be physically active. So it's the last thing in the world I would ever want to do is to ban anyone from sports. I just want to protect the opportunities for people that are biologically female to have equal chance of being able to win medals, put successes onto their onto their CV going forward, get university scholarships, get places on teams, be proud of records that they set, whatever it is. Females are worthy of equal opportunity. We are not second-class citizens, and I'm not prepared to sit back and pretend that we are. So,
amen. Oh my gosh, it's so true. There is no compromise for women. There is nothing that we should have to give up to ensure that trans athletes can compete. But that being said, trans athletes shouldn't be banned from sports. Of course not. And that's something that we see in the States a lot, especially in regards to state legislature being pushed. The opposition, they always say this is an anti-trans bill that bans trans athletes from competing. And that's simply not true. I love how you mentioned it equips people with the right information, with effective messaging, how to communicate about it, what to do. Really powerful. You mentioned in your book, you had a quote, I think it's from Cynthia Millen, and it says, bodies compete against bodies, gender identities don't swim, which is, that's the basis of the argument.
How do we marshal feelings? It's ridiculous. You know,
Absolutely.
if we turn around and say that we're going to accept a feeling that says someone can feel like a male or a female depending on their feeling, not the reality of their body, where does that stop? You know, what's the next feeling that's going to trump a reality? And we're not doing our kids any favors by not dealing with the truth. You know, it's by telling young children that they're going to be able to change sex when they're not. They're going to have to take medication for the rest of their life. They're going to have to do things to their bodies which will probably shorten their lives.
Clay Travis will join us in a few minutes here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Glad you're with us across the network and on YouTube. Streaming live, you can join us in the chat. And while you're there, we hope you'll subscribe. You can get all of the shows live or on demand each and every day, plus clips and much more. That's just by searching out OutKick on YouTube and subscribing to the channel. Chad, Major League Baseball expansion is coming soon. But Rob Manfred says it's only going to happen after they resolve whatever's going on with the A's in Vegas. And if the Rays are really serious with ownership about staying in Tampa and actually building a stadium that's worth something. Tampa has a setup where they've tarped off seats. I think they seat 25,000. And I guess there's a rule where if you tarp them, you can't untarp them. Can you imagine wanting to actually go to those games now in Tampa because of their team? And they announced a sellout of 25,000 this past weekend, but that's as high as they can get.
Yeah, and that was probably at least half Braves fans.
Yeah.
I was watching that series, and it sounded like a Braves home game at times. There are a lot of Braves fans in Florida for years of being the Southeast regional team, so that was a Braves-heavy crowd.
Speaking of the Braves, let's start there as Clay Travis joins us, the president of OutKick, our fearless leader. Clay, good to have you, man. Hope things are well.
Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing great. What did you make whenever you saw the headline that and Manfred admitting that they're reconsidering going back to Atlanta for the All-Star game in 2025 after removing it over a voting law that was passed in Georgia in 21?
Well, I'm glad that Georgia cured racism in the 2 years since the All-Star game was removed. That's a big moment for America, a big win for sports community, for global equity. I mean, no, look, Rob Manfred's an idiot, particularly on this issue, because the evidence was never there. And this is what super frustrates me is when something catches a lot of heat on social media, but you actually look at the evidence and nothing supports it. And as you actually break down what truly took place there, overall voting went up. Minority voting was easier than it had been in past elections. They said that basically 0% of all minorities in all of Georgia felt discriminated against. The overall turnout was up massively in 2022 as opposed to the last midterm election in 2018. And I mean, this is the real kicker. They were going to honor Hank Aaron, who probably for the history of baseball, how many people are more impactful for the rise of black players than Hank Aaron and what he represented, certainly becoming the home run king in Atlanta and in Major League Baseball. And so I think it's emblematic. I like to think that maybe this stupidity of left-wing politics being involved in sports is going to start to fade because I doubt Rob Manfred is ever going to apologize to the people of Georgia or the people of Atlanta. But as I argued back then, there was no basis to support it. But also the people of Atlanta who would have made a lot of money off getting to host the All-Star game were the real losers. Now, the ultimate, I would say, karmic justice was that the Braves went to the World Series and got to host the World Series instead, which, you know, we just had the All-Star game in Seattle. I'm sure most people, yeah, right. I'm sure most people out there, if given the choice between hosting the World Series or hosting the All-Star game, I mean, that's not a difficult choice. So I think the karmic sports justice, you know, the ball don't lie component of that story ended up in a good place for Atlanta and Georgia sports fans. But it still set the precedent of it being the wrong choice. And the same thing happened with the NBA when they pulled their All-Star game out of Charlotte. That was the wrong choice too. I'm hopeful that we've seen now two wrong choices, and hopefully these leagues will learn from the choice that was made there.
And just the fact that they listened to the vocal mob there, and then they moved it to Colorado. So Georgia had just passed a law where they were allowing 17 days of in-person early voting, and they moved it to a state, Clay, that offers 15 days of early voting.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the reality is baseball fell victim to a lie, but there aren't any real consequences, right? Because it wasn't just baseball. Joe Biden traveled down to the state of Georgia and compared their election law to the Civil War and compared what was going on there. He said it wasn't just Jim Crow, it was Jim Eagle. Now that's a stupid line, one of many stupid lines Biden's had in his presidency. But what they were trying to do was argue, you know, Jim Crow was bad. This is even worse than the 1950s era Jim Crow laws. And it was just a lie. And so he went down, made those speeches, and then the data comes out, proves that he was 100% wrong. And all the media that carried the water, that carried the lie that Joe Biden spread, most of them say nothing. Most of the sports media who cheered on the decision to pull the All-Star game out of Atlanta say nothing when they're proven to be wrong. Rob Manfred won't admit, hey, I shouldn't have done that. I would, if I were the governor of Georgia, insist if Atlanta's going to host the All-Star game that Rob Manfred come out and apologize to Braves fans and say, we got it wrong. We apologize to data. I mean, that's what adults should do when you're wrong about something. Own it. And it won't happen, right? And the media that carried that lie will never say, hey, you know what, we got that wrong in retrospect. And there's a difference between being wrong on an opinion, which is virtually impossible to prove, right? And being wrong factually, which is what Major League Baseball was and has been proven now to be.
Clay, I value your opinion, so I need you to weigh in on this. You heard my 8U softball coaching story where I received my second umpire warning.
He can relate to this.
Yesterday. The first one was for not removing the bat in time as the coach pitcher. But this one was because I was talking to my first baseman from the third base dugout and yelled, hey, it was a bad call, but so what? We have to move on. And the umpire heard, hey, it was a bad call. And she looked in the dugout and said, don't ever say that again. That's a warning. And we had to have a conversation in between innings after I just said simply, yes, ma'am. Clay, as someone who has been kicked out of their son's Little League baseball game, you are an expert in all things dealing with an umpire in softball, baseball, anything. How would you rule on this one with me? Was I in the right? Was I in the wrong? Was it somewhere in the middle?
First one, you're 100% in the right, because given the circumstances, as I understood it, there was no play at the plate that was potentially going to occur. And so the idea that you should have to come out and move the bat was not accurately applied.
No one was getting paralyzed on the play at the plate is what I was trying to tell the umpire. Like, I'll get it out of here before someone breaks their neck. Don't worry.
I also have coached a Little League baseball for years. I've never been told that as the coach, I'm responsible for removing the bat, right? So I've been told certainly, hey, tell your team, because as anybody who's coached Little League can well imagine, a lot of kids like really fling the bat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the most dangerous thing associated with Little League baseball is kids don't have great sense of control, either in throwing the baseball oftentimes, like they don't really know where it's going to go. It's a lot of Rick Wild Thing Vaughns out there. And also they don't really know what strength is required to get the bat and move it. So like sometimes you'll see kids will, I've just seen it. You'll be like, hey, get the bat. Kid picks it up and just hums it, right? Like I've taken a couple of those bats in the shins where like you're not really expecting, you're talking to somebody else in the dugout and suddenly that fast baseball bat comes in there at a fast speed. So you're in the right there. Other one, though, I would say this. I think you are serving a dual purpose on the instruction to the first baseman because, hey, you've got to be, paying attention. Your message is also she blew the call, right? So
move on.
You're telling your person, hey, she blew the call, while also being, but you got to pay attention, right? You didn't just say, hey, you got to, So I think it's a lot of times you'll see coaches, and I've done this too. You'll see coaches like when they get teed up.
Did he get sniped? I guess he did.
Oh man, we were right in the middle of a great answer on that.
Yes, we were. We'll reconnect in just a moment.
By the way, Clay is correct. The more I think about it, I think psychologically.
Oh yeah, she
when
heard
I'm
one.
saying
She
it,
heard the
I
first
said
point.
I said it in a way where I wanted her to know that I knew it was a bad call, while also looking at my player and addressing it and saying it. I also had a great out when I went up to her to explain it and say, hey, I wasn't there. You were closer, but she clearly thinks it was the wrong call, and she's the one right there on top of it. So I'm explaining to my first baseman, Avery, my first baseman, Avery, we got to keep playing. We can't get frustrated because of a perceived bad call. Clay's onto something there with the psychology behind it.
The other favorite part for me of the story, and I was going to chime in with Clay on this, is how you describe the two umpires. Not only, is it it's just one umpire on the field, right? It's just the plate umpire.
Only one.
Which makes it very difficult. There's almost an elderly description to them as you describe this.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny because there's a mother-daughter tandem that umpired all my games. When I went to the other field and played 2 games, I think it was this umpire's daughter who umpires us.
Okay. And then, so she's heard about you.
I have a great rapport with her. I've never had an issue.
Oh, she wasn't the other one.
She's just very chatty. There's another umpire who talks to me and talks to my girl. She's very nice.
So her daughter hasn't warned you.
Hey, great swing, sweetheart. Try that one again. This and that. Very good with all the girls.
As it should be. Yeah.
But there are times where I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to talk to my team. So I appreciate the trying to cheer us up, here? But I need to talk to my team now. But she does a good job. And this other, I want to be clear, this umpire I think is really good. Do I think she missed the call badly?
We know you think that.
Yes, she did. But she's also I would describe her as one of the best umpires we've ever encountered in this league. So it did hurt a little bit when she gave me the warning. Clay, I was actually agreeing with you. The more I dive into this, deep into my psyche, I do think that I was trying to serve a dual purpose by saying it as loud
100%.
as I did and saying, hey, it's a bad call, but so what? Pause.
She only heard the first
part. But
part.
so what? And she heard the first part, and she warned me.
Yeah, it's like if you're married, I'm married. If I say, yeah, your mom's wrong, but you still have to listen to her, right? And your wife is there, and you're like trying to instruct the kid. Your wife might be like, oh, wait a minute. Like, yeah, the end result, I understand what you're arguing, but you're taking a side swipe at me along the pathway there, right? So you're trying. I think the ump was fair in the way that she was responding in that situation.
Well,
right?
so I took the next step, though, Clay, and I said, yes, ma'am, we'll talk after the inning. And I approached her at the inning. This is where I thought, a little bit unfair in the beginning that she didn't even want to talk to me. Like, we don't need to talk about it.
You.
And I'm walking over there, and keep in mind that 6 of my parents coach the Little League team. in our league for their respective teams. So I've got a lot of coaches' kids. And one of the women who coaches, who's her daughter's the catcher on my team, as I'm walking to the umpire between innings, she goes, Chad, you don't need to explain anything to her because they were so mad about the call. And I said, it's the first inning. I don't want her on my bad side the whole game. I'm going to go talk to her. And I said, hey, I'm sorry. I said, here was my real intent, was to get her to keep playing. But, Clay, I think you nailed it, that also my intent was to make sure she knew that I knew that it was a horrendous call.
Yeah.
Yes.
Clay.
Yes, I think that's it. But, and I was saying when that got dropped, did you watch the All-Star game last night?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you miss a call on whether they stepped on first base or not, particularly in girls softball 8-year-old, which is, I'm assuming, not a super fast-moving sport, just as a general rule. Maybe Florence Griffith-Joyner's on one of the teams. And, there's somebody
not
flying
on
around
my
the base
team.
fast.
Can confirm. She's not on my team, that's for sure.
In general, I think, usually speed makes, being an umpire harder because there's just way more rapidity of game or whatever. So I would think AU would not be a sport where there's a great deal of speed, but they missed it last night in the All-Star game. They had not just the home plate umpire, the third base umpire, and then honestly, I think you should get fired on the spot if this happened. They had a right and left field umpire, and the left field umpire missed the call on whether it was a home run or not, fair or foul. What else does he have to do? I mean, he's literally standing on the line on left field. All he has to do is turn and follow the ball, and he missed whether the home run was fair or foul. And so, when they have big games, they bring out more umpires on the field. That should be one that you never, ever get wrong unless, you had one of those Jeffrey Meyer-like situations back in the day where a fan reaches out onto the field. People remember that in Yankee Stadium. I think it was right field. The guy was trying to make the catch, and he reaches out. And so that can be hard because you don't have great depth perception. But whether a home run is fair or foul, if you're on the left field line, should be among the easiest calls on the planet to make.
Clay Travis has been our guest on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
What is your primary complaint?
When people pop their knuckles.
Primary complaint is chewing with your mouth open. Yuck.
I would say when you're getting off an airplane and people in the back try and sprint to the front, especially like late at night, like you don't have a connecting flight, just wait like everybody else. I'd say that's fine.
Small portions, big bill. Yeah, if the quality's good, it's okay. But if there's small portions and I got a big fat bill, not a thing,
Sun Country Airlines canceling our flight less than 8 hours before we're supposed to leave.
I've never even heard of Sun Country Airlines in my life.
Velcro.
Velcro? Why? What about it?
The sound.
Oh, like nails on a chalkboard for you.
I'm a kindergarten teacher, and to hear that Velcro.
Time to teach them how to tie their shoes.
When they don't cross the road when no cars are driving.
They're just waiting for the light?
Yeah, like a normal person.
Yeah, you got to break the rules a little bit.
We're right from New York City. We know how to walk.
Really upset. Ben Jones is no longer with the Titans, but more importantly, I'm upset the Titans didn't draft a wide receiver in the top 2 rounds. We need receivers, guys. Come on, tighten up.
So what do you think about Will Levis? Was that a good move or a bad move?
Ooh, that's a tough call. Time will tell. But I think we needed a receiver more.
Smack their gum. Chew with their mouth open and smack their gum.
Okay.
That with chips and everything else, yeah.
Liars.
Liars, okay. Has anyone lied to you recently?
No.
Have you lied?
Always.
One of the biggest pet peeves is not knowing your manners. Like, not having respect or thank you, sir, ma'am.
My biggest pet peeve is when you don't push your chair in after you leave a table. That's my biggest pet peeve. Really is.
So like when people want to speak to you and they're like you to me, but they start walking out of the other room into different rooms and they keep talking like, I am supposed to understand. I can't hardly understand people when their back is turned to me and when they're not talking right at me. So when you're getting into different rooms and you keep talking like, yeah, blah, 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 it must be my dog talking to me.
There's a crane over every building. There's a truck.
There's a whole something. Yeah. So let's get the streets fixed and get those things done. Time's wasted. Let's go.
A dirty house.
Dirty house. Like, are you a shoes off at the front door kind of guy?
Up front, yes, ma'am.
I hate it when centre backs don't bat the odd one. Do you know,
What?
when the centre backs go up to try and catch the ball all the time, they should bat the odd one.
You know, siblings are pet peeves, you know, to be honest with you. You know, just looking at him, he's a pet peeve.
I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I like to get along with others. I kind of leave people in their place. When people don't follow the social construct, it really upsets me. Example, when you stand up on an airplane, right when it lands, and then try to push past people down the line. You know what orders you're supposed to go in. That's the part of the social contract. When you're grocery shopping and you have your cart and you don't take it back to the cart delivery spot, but you just leave it by there beside the parking spot, taking up someone else's spot, violating the social contract. Do what you're supposed to. Yeah, do your civic duty. Follow through with what your parents told you to do.
Glad you're with us. Hutton and Withrow, Hot Mike here on OutKick. Our thanks to Clay Travis for joining us, Dan Dockich earlier. If you missed that, you can go to our YouTube channel later and search it out. Search out OutKick, and you can get us on demand.
Clay ruled that I'm 1-1 on the umpire warnings. The first one not warranted. I was totally in the right, and the second one that she had me.
If you had another, what would happen? Is there 3 warnings and you got to go sit with family? Or?
That's a good question. So it's funny because one of the dads was listening on our Nashville radio affiliate, 94.9 The Fan, and just sent a text to the entire team, group text of parents, and said, Coach is recapping 8U softball from this past weekend right now on air. So we got a shout out there. It's just in game. It doesn't carry on with you. If I were to get tossed from a game, which, by the way, will never happen.
And that happened to Clay.
Clay got tossed as a parent in the stands, right? But as a coach or a parent, like I'll never let it get to that point where I come in any danger of getting tossed. I mean, I thought she was in the wrong, and even when she gave me the warning, I said, yes, ma'am. And I said, I'll come talk to you after the inning. I did not continue to argue because had I continued to argue, I could have been tossed. If I get tossed, I think you're just up to the discipline of the league. They can decide whatever they want. They can kick you out of coaching. They can suspend you for another game. They can do whatever they want at that point.
2 weeks without pay and it ends up being with cost.
That would just go on by 2 years without pay that I've been going right now as a volunteer coach.
It is time to get weird. Let's get weird. Davey Hudson with the top headlines in that area today. And where are we starting, Davey?
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Talking now.
Okay, guys, we're starting with blood vessels. All right, I just have a fact of the day for you. I want to go into this.
Chad, listen to this with your feet.
Just going to read it. Yeah, Chad, this is very important. So
this is it down. Now it's going to be confirmed that I am dying.
Now this statistic is from the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, and it says blood vessels could circle the globe. Your blood vessels could circle the globe. Though blood vessels are relatively small, the network is amazingly long. In fact, if they were laid out in a line, they would measure more than 60,000 miles in length. Now, considering that the circumference of the Earth is 24,873 miles, that's according to NASA, that means your blood vessels could circle the globe more than twice.
And that's just for everyone? Like everyone's blood vessels?
As an adult,
average adult person?
Have you seen the cadaver where they have everything removed except for the blood vessels?
Well,
this is
another thing that I don't know about. Like, does Andre the Giant Did he have longer blood vessels, being the giant that he was?
He
as
would
opposed
because
to
he's he's a bigger person, so
Right.
the blood vessels run throughout every single
So it is
facet of
size
your
dependent.
body.
It's not like, the heart is the same size pretty much no matter how big you are. Your blood vessels can be bigger with the body.
Yes, that is a fair statement.
It's a good medical fact that you brought to the table today, Dave. I'm very impressed because it raises so many more questions to me.
Dr. Hudson.
And when you bring up a good fact, it should raise some questions.
Yes.
That's good.
I bring that up because my next story, you could clog every single one of those vessels
Okay.
and those arteries. Because so Burger King in Thailand, they are releasing a cheeseburger with 20 slices of cheese.
And that's with the patty just covered in 20 slices?
It's false advertising for starters, and that's where I'm a little perturbed because there actually is no beef on this, yet they're calling it a cheeseburger. I'm already frustrated. You see the guy eating it here in Thailand. I mean, it's 20 American slices. We're looking at about 1,100 calories there.
That's not a meal. That's a fetish.
That is something. And I mean, I've told you guys I can't stand cheese, but with this guy doing this and them serving it, I mean, everybody knows the BK jingle that's been going off over the last 6 months now. Actually, it was back in football season, so close to a year.
I put this fetish right behind watching someone sleep.
Yeah, we had to cut away from what that Thai man did to that sandwich after that bite, so that we couldn't show that on air. That's how bad it got.
20 slices.
Hutton, I was watching The Food That Built America, one of the episodes this morning.
What's
Sent you a
this
little
building?
clip from that about
you did.
the sell of Burger King to Pillsbury and what happened when that happened.
They declined.
Yeah,
year
this
after
is
year.
not. It is. I went down the wormhole of. Is it wormhole or rabbit hole? What are we going with? What's the judge's
Either
ruling
one.
on that?
Either.
It can go either way? Okay. I'll go wormhole on this one. But of extreme menu items at fast food restaurants internationally, like things they'll have at McDonald's in Bangkok, or whatever, or Burger King in the Philippines. And this is actually pretty tame compared to what you'll find at fast food places, some places around the world.
So, like,
just
instead
a specific
of a fish fillet sandwich, they'll have like something crazy.
Yeah, I'm struggling to come up with the perfect example.
Clam
but
sandwich?
They'll have something that's local to the culinary scene that is a fast food item that you would not
Squid,
get at any of those
octopus.
places around the world.
So
Right.
one example that came to
Things
mind.
we would have
An
whenever
eel,
we're out of
eel,
town.
fried eel
Well,
for the filet of fish.
In the Philippines, they serve spaghetti at their McDonald's.
Oh, they serve spaghetti?
In the Philippines.
But
at
it's not
McDonald's.
as we would
But
recognize it.
that's the example what I'm
Right?
talking about. It's
Yeah.
something crazy that you wouldn't get
So
at
it's
any of the fast food
It's
chains
an old
here.
Fazoli's, is what you're saying.
Yeah, they changed over.
They probably give you
New-
normal size
new management.
portions too, in everywhere else but America.
It's not an Olive Garden. I'm
Fazoli
not
still
going
do
in
the
there.
lunch buffet. Remember they had like the little buffet, but all you could get was spaghetti or a slice of pepperoni pizza.
Oh, you know what the best was going to the salad bar and then getting a personal pan pizza at Pizza Hut.
Oh my gosh! Don't get me started on Joe Kinsey writes about this all the time with screen caps at OutKick.
Yeah.
But the old school Pizza Hut, and he's got one. It's like on the Ohio. I want to say it's like the Ohio, Indiana maybe border.
Yeah.
And it's in Ohio, but it is an original like 1981 Pizza Hut that has not changed. That is still
The low lamp light
that's
from
still
the
in
ceiling and all
business,
that.
and it's got the whole setup. The buffet.
They had
It's
like McDonald's.
The
They had great
soda
Coca-Cola.
pitchers.
Yes.
Remember the red
Yes.
pitchers for
Yeah.
soda they'd give you? Oh,
It was the best.
that's Americana at its best.
Why change?
Am I right on this? The holy trinity of Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC.
Those are the three that united, that are owned by the same company now, right?
But do you ever remember seeing those? Like you drive by and it's like one restaurant and it has all three of them inside.
Yeah, we had I remember it was a big deal in high school in my hometown when there was a KFC Taco Bell combo. I don't know if I've seen all three in one. I've seen two. There's now like Mapco's. Your convenience stores have Pizza Huts in them. They have a deal with Mapco. There's a lot of Pizza Huts inside of Mapco.
That's where I don't trust if what I'm ordering is actually what's on the plate.
Well, what's
If
crazy
it's a Long
is
John
when you
Silver's and,
yeah, you go to one of those places though,
Jack
and
in the Box.
in your bag, you get like Taco Bell at Taco Bell KFC, and there's a random half a chicken tender.
Exactly.
That's just thrown in the bag. Also, that when they scooped up out of the fryer, they got some chicken in there. Also, that's a little odd.
Well, guys, speaking of Flavor Town, our next story involves Guy Fieri because his son Hunter is now dating the world's #1 ranked pro pickleball player. Didn't know they had a world ranking for this, but that is the case. And I mean, I'm going to be honest, she is a smoke show. Her name is Tara Bernstein, and I don't really know where you can, I guess, YouTube, you can watch different streams of pickleball players, but she and Hunter have made it Instagram official. And, you know, it's just anytime you can show some photos of Guy Fieri, it just, you know, it just puts a smile on most people's face. My favorite video of Guy is from a concert in 2015. This shows legendary status when you're autographing lean cuisines and throwing them out to a crowd of concert goers. I mean, that is just next level in my opinion.
I've never enjoyed any restaurant of Guy Fieri's. He owns there's one here in downtown Nashville, Chicken Guy or Chicken Man. He owns a chain of chicken restaurants, and I think it's Chicken Guy. But I've never been. He's got different concept restaurants all over the country, and I've never been to one of them. Now, I do like his work on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Big fan of that on Food Network. Chuck, who works with us here at OutKick, huge pickleball guy. Maybe Chuck knows the ranking of this woman and how good she is, and he could come in and tell us just how skilled she is at pickleball. But good for him. Good for Fieri Jr.
So, yeah,
And this is Hunter, his son?
Hunter, yes. We'll continue
Well done,
to keep tabs on this relationship to see how it goes. You know, I got to make sure the pop culture, everything, keep you going.
Does he also have the frosted tips?
He does not. No, he seems pretty normal. I mean, he does have a mustache that I would say is pretty, like, hey, you know, your dad's kind of got that going as well.
Yeah, but that's in style,
ironic
right?
So,
mustache.
Fieri, does he still have, do you ever just go full goatee, or was it more just soul patch? I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm kind of drawing a blank.
I think he's always rocked well, he's got a goatee there. It's soul patch is blonde. I think his calling card is to dye the soul patch and to keep the goatee his actual color.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. You ever think whenever he's actually dyeing the blonde patch that he's thinking to himself, I'm 55, 56 years old. What the hell am I doing?
When was the crossover point that at one point he thought it was cool? So he went on TV that way because he thought it was cool.
Yeah,
and then
that was his brand.
Quickly into his tenure on television did he say, this is now awful, but I have to keep it up. This is the ruse. I have to keep going now for the rest of my life.
They are known. I mean, they had to be in character all the time. Undertaker refused to break character.
It's like when you wanted to get a tattoo as a kid.
He could barely move in the ring.
As a young person, your parents would say, oh, think about how it's going to look when you're 80 and it's all stretched out and your skin's all wrinkly. That is what someone should have told Guy Fieri when he did that to his hair.
You know what, though?
And his soul patch the first time and said, imagine you at 50 trying to pull this off.
But then he sees Skip Bayless wearing a chain at 71. And he thinks, you know what? I can do that. I can pull this off.
He's also just laughing all the way to the bank. So whatever he's done has worked financially for him.
No doubt.
Well, guys, that story involves pickleball. We're going to go to one that actually involves tennis next because we have the reason, according to the AP, as to why Larry Nassar was stabbed.
Okay.
Yes. So
because he was Larry Nassar?
Well, that was a part of it, but it's actually and again, I guess this goes to show the state of America's prisons at this time. But a suspect told prison workers he stabbed Larry Nassar because he made a lewd comment when they were watching the Wimbledon match.
Well, that's how he confirmed it was Larry Nassar. Wait a second, you're Nassar? And then he stabbed in the neck. Was it the same? Was it immediate, or was it like the next day? Do we know?
I don't have that. That is all I have from the AP at this moment. Got an email of that happening not long ago, and so or that was what was released, and so I'm bringing it here
to stab him over. It must have been quite the lewd comment.
I'm shocked that anyone in prison,
based on what he's done,
anyone in prison's a big tennis fan. That someone's that big into tennis that they stab someone over a comment made while watching tennis.
The biggest guy in the prison was a tennis fan. He's going to control the remote.
Are you talking about my guy Medvedev right now? Do you really want to go? Do you want to go over this? And then he got stabbed.
And well, guys, they don't have a draft.
I don't feel sorry for him at all.
No, not at all. They don't have a draft for tennis or pickleball, as far as I know. But the MLB does have a draft. I learned that you don't actually even have to declare for the MLB draft. As long as you meet the requirements, any team can select you if they would like. And so that is the recent case. To kind of get back to some sports, because DJ Uiagalelei, I think I'm saying that right, yes.
You did not.
Former, it's fine. We'll roll with it.
It was close. You were close.
Former
say it one more time.
Clemson quarterback who is now at Oregon State.
I didn't hear. Did you say it wrong? Say it one more time.
It's Uiagalelei.
DJ Uyunglele.
Yeah, you're pronouncing you made the mistake of pronouncing
done,
every
David.
letter.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to.
So continue. Sorry, we
Wait, no,
interrupted.
you're good. He got drafted by the Dodgers, but he hasn't played high school since baseball, and based off all reports, like he has no plans on doing so.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Like
some
Russell
people,
Wilson.
yeah, some people are saying he made the team just. Why would you waste that draft pick? But I'm thinking, you know what? That's not a terrible strategy if you're wanting some PR, because I mean that's what they got here. And I would do it like a step further, and I would draft Danny McBride, and that way you have Kenny Powers on your baseball
Will
team
Ferrell.
in the 20th round, and it's not going to matter. Because like, when's the last time a 20th round guy ended up turning into something?
I mean, it takes so long to get these guys up to the majors too. Like, they just want the rights in case they can lure. If his NFL career sucks, they can lure him to Major League Baseball.
I don't think he'll have an NFL career. I think with him, what Davey's saying is different from the celebrity standpoint, which I could understand.
Yeah,
as
it's different.
Uyunglele was a guy who threw 95 in high school, and he's 6'4", 250 pounds. So I do think that they're thinking, this guy, maybe we can take a flyer on him in the 20th round and turn him into a closer or middle reliever at some point because he's that good of an athlete. So I think that's actually pretty smart to go with guys in different sports that have baseball background. If you're gonna take a flyer, do it in the later rounds.
It's like
that way.
Antonio Gates in the NFL.
Yes.
Playing basketball, known for that.
Yep.
Ends up becoming the great tight end with the Chargers. Jimmy Graham and others as well. Stay tuned. Headlines and much more straight ahead here on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted
he
and how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, Chad. Final hour is here. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network. What's the chat saying today on YouTube?
Well, I learned from someone, I don't think it was in the chat, but that Guy Fieri's restaurant in Nashville closed, apparently after a very short time being open. I was right. It was Chicken Guy is the name of Guy Fieri's chicken place. Chat's on fire. We've got talk of semi-pro, great movie, terrible movie, discussing that right now. I'd say great movie. And just a lot of responses to what we're talking about, Hutton. People love the old school Pizza Huts.
Oh, yeah.
Like us.
Absolutely. Riley Gaines is a part of the OutKick network. You can check out her show, Gaines for Girls, available now and debuted yesterday across OutKick, where she spoke with Sharon Davies, British Olympic medal winning swimmer, about the East Germans and the fight for equal playing fields for women in sports.
This issue of male advantage plaguing women's sports, it only recently came to light, I feel like, for so many, including myself. I was really only became aware of this when I was slapped across the face with it in regards to Leah Thomas. But as you alluded to, this is something that you had experience of. You were well ahead of your time. 43 years ago, you saw this. And so would you be able to touch on what that experience looked like competing against the East Germans?
And we would have East German athletes turning up to things like the Olympics, and we'd never, ever seen them before. And they would literally arrive and smash world records. They looked and sounded like, very masculine. They had deep voices, very large Adam apple, bad skin, through no fault of their own. I've never had a problem with these individuals. They were pawns of a horrible system. The people I have a big problem with is the IOC. And they allowed this to happen for 20 years. They even had East German doctors sitting on international doping panels. So every time we came up with a way to try and catch them, they would find a way to avoid being caught. And this was allowed to go on for 2 decades. So imagine the number of females that missed out. However, those females only missed out at international competitions, and they predominantly missed out in swimming, track and field, and rowing. What we've got now is 10 times worse, because this is happening across every single sport, at every single level, in every single country.
That's Gaines for Girls. Riley Gaines, a part of the OutKick Network, debuting Gaines for Girls yesterday. Every Wednesday, a new episode, OutKick.com, and you can check out more at our YouTube channel as well. And, Chad, I'm sitting here listening, and I'm thinking, I hope that some will see this across the female sports landscape and want to be more vocal, and she's allowing the platform for that to happen. And she was an athlete at the highest level in college, winning national championships, which she has on the wall behind her.
You know what I'm thinking when I'm watching that? That lady has a great accent. I could listen to her read the phone book.
What do you think the British think of their accent versus what they find attractive or easy listening?
That's a great question.
Australian is very similar, so I don't think it's that.
It's probably a different European accent, like an Italian accent.
Is it Irish, you think?
I don't know.
A part of the...
I think the Irish accent would be treated by, like, Londoners...
France?
As a Southern accent.
Okay.
It's almost seen as, like, a lesser than to them, right? It'd be seen as something charming... Right? Like most people from the North, they find Southern accents to be charming a lot of times, but that's the way Brits would look at the Irish accent.
What do you think,
Yeah, well, there's the Liverpool accent where it's like, oh, I don't know about that. They keep on talking like
The
that.
Beatles,
They kind of have that.
if you do a Beatles impression, you get
there's
that.
like the Cockney where it's like oh, hello, I'm going down on the other here. Well, that's a little bit more Australian, actually. I struggle with that one sometimes going back and forth. And then, of course, the Scottish, oh, I didn't know about that.
We're just going to start naming countries and have Davey do the accent.
We had an engineer one time that got. I mean, if this thing was being
Shout out to
filmed,
Kirby.
he would be canceled by now for his portrayal of certain
We would have
nations that
rehired
we'd throw
him, though.
out. But I mean, we'd be like, Ghana.
And he would act like he knew.
He would act like Belgian, and he would go into different. And all the Eastern European accents sounded exactly the same. Now, I have seen many British actors claim the most difficult accent to master is generic American. So when Brits try to put on an American accent, that's actually much more difficult.
I'm going to appreciate that more. I didn't know that. They're very good at it.
The closest of accents is old Southern accent for the Brits.
So like Ruth
Someone was
Langmore
talking about doing a British
in
accent.
Ozark? Is that it? Is that what she was doing?
No.
She's British, right?
That's more like no. She's from New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's a.
Who am I thinking of then of the show that we all watch?
Well, there's a ton of British actors who have played Americans. Tom Wamsgams in Succession is a British guy playing an American. You'd never know he's British watching the show, but that's the most difficult accent to nail. But the easiest crossover is American Southern accent and British for actors. They say there's actually a commonality, especially when it's old South accent with British accents.
Daniel Day-Lewis, would that be one?
Daniel Day-Lewis, he's such a method actor. He has to have that accent for months on end when he goes into it.
I don't know how he does that, man. I don't know where he draws the line. I don't know where actors who are method actors draw the line on, like, do they become pieces of the characters? They're in it for so long. Are they actually who they were? Do you carry on a piece? Do you become completely different in 20 years versus who you were at the time when you got into the idea that you need to be in that character 24/7?
So the first time I remember being legitimately thrown off by someone's accent, having heard them before, Orlando Bloom, who I think is Australian. Davey can confirm that or not. He's British or Australian. I want to say he's Australian.
Okay.
But he was in a movie called Elizabethtown. That's a Cameron Crowe movie, and Kirsten Dunst was in it. And he played just a generic middle of America American, and the accent was so bad that all I could hear was his Australian accent. He was bad at it. And that's the first time I heard, like, man, this guy cannot get the American accent down.
I'm fascinated by it. And the in-character aspect, too, with all of it. Is he Australian? He's British.
Oh, he's a Brit.
It's very similar, though.
Yeah.
So I don't think they appreciate in England the
I'm not going to be allowed in the
Australia.
Orlando Bloom fan club now. Oh, well. There goes one life goal.
Well, he doesn't need you. He's got plenty. There are
Yeah.
plenty in the Orlando Bloom fan club, especially those who have either fortunately or unfortunately seen the TMZ or whatever it was beach photos.
Is he still with Katy
Remember this?
Perry? He was with Katy Perry at one point.
Who hasn't been?
I think. Who hasn't been with Orlando Bloom or Katy Perry?
Oh, it's like the headlines of Tom Brady's now with Kim Kardashian. I'm thinking,
yeah, okay.
Who isn't?
That tracks.
Yeah. Chad, there are certain times, or we'll do a speaking engagement or whatever, and we'll be with a friend or whatever, and we will be like, hey, what do you want us to work in here? What's the catchphrase? As like a tip of the cap to you, and we'll work it into the broadcast, right?
Yeah.
Somehow, Rand Paul worked in NIL to the conversation in the hearing on Capitol Hill involving Live Golf and the PGA Tour.
The court ruled unanimously that the NCAA can't invoke their rules. And so they've completely screwed up college athletes. We used to be proud. Many of us loved watching amateur athletes that weren't paid. Now everybody that plays basketball in college is going to be driving a Bentley or a Rolls. I mean, we're going to be seeing rap stars instead of basketball stars. I mean, this is crazy. But you know why it happened? Because Congress sat around and said, oh, well, because of antitrust, we can't let the NCAA do it. It went to the court, and the court made the ruling, unfortunately, a unanimous ruling based on the law. So the law's got to change. Antitrust shouldn't be involved with association.
That's how he worked it in, antitrust law.
I mean, it is convenient that he says, we all loved watching guys not make any money or have any ability to make money. Man, that was so much fun. The good old days where athletes couldn't make money on their own name, image, and likeness. I prefer to watch my sports athletes poor as opposed to rich.
I prefer to watch the NCAA claim to be a nonprofit.
I don't know
and make billions.
I don't know how that's a valid argument from him, other than just enjoying things the way they were. Like, great. I'm glad that we all enjoyed college sports when the athletes couldn't make money or get a job by NCAA rules, or they were getting paid under the table and not over the table. But that's not a good argument. I like it the way it was now, and we liked our sports better when they couldn't make money. So now they're making money. It's ruined the sport. I'm not saying that it's perfect or that it won't eventually ruin the sport, but that's a pretty lazy argument.
Well, but
because I liked it, that's what we like, is seeing our athletes poor.
Yeah, and those
That's basically what
contributing
he's
to campaigns are also donating because in the plausible idea that the wealthy are donating to campaigns because they're wealthy based on being the few instead of the many that are involved in any league. And that's certainly the case, or was the case, with the NCAA, and they're still making a ton of money off the NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, the college football playoff is going to rake in cash. So there is still a massive difference, this gap between the haves and the have-nots. But it is so far out of the box, it's tough to get everything back in because there was a delay, and on purpose, not to act on anything and just point to, you're a student athlete. You're not an employee. We can't let you do this. You're not allowed to do this. You're going to follow the guidelines of the governing body. Not the case anymore. And the Supreme Court, in their ruling in the Alston case, said, hey, if this were to come to us, it's the overriding opinion that you would also lose, and lose big on this angle too. And that's why, July 1st, 2021, it was wide open. And it's tough to change that now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of smart arguments to be made against NIL, transfer portal, everything going on. I think Nick Saban's made a number of them.
He'll do it next week.
I think, allocation of funds, division amongst the team when you don't have rules set in place and a salary cap structure of what one guy's getting and not another guy's getting. And now we're talking about pay for play and not just making money because of your star power or social media following, all of those things. But, I mean, what do I care that Livy Dunn is a millionaire?
Right.
Because she has a great Instagram following.
Or
I don't care.
Or that an offensive lineman made $25 grand.
This is where I hear politicians weigh into this, and I think there are plenty of smart arguments to be made. That's a pretty dumb argument to say that college athletics were better when guys were not making money, and that's the way I prefer it. Okay, great. Well, what about the athletes? Do they prefer it that way? Or do they like it now that they can make a little money on the side or make money as a player? I'm willing to bet if you polled the majority of athletes, they'd rather be able to make money off name, image, likeness. So I don't know how that is a valid argument in this discussion. I think there are other valid arguments against it, but Rand Paul's was not one of them.
But what it has created, there's going to be a union, and within that there will be a hierarchy. You'll have the quarterbacks versus the position players, and that's
what's going to eventually ruin the sport.
And that's what the Supreme Court's ruling allowed based on the inactive leadership of college athletics. I like that argument more than just like, I enjoyed it more then. Well, players are getting paid, but it was under the table. So a lot of the times, the star player, you didn't really know what he was making. You saw the car he was driving. And you know that his father was just hired as an assistant coach somewhere that he wanted to be. But beyond that, you didn't know the details. Now, the details are in the EA Sports in the college football 2024 game that they claim there's going to be released. Every player's getting $500. Well, on the surface level, that seems fair versus getting nothing. But you still have cover athletes. You still have the star marquee talent where the name, image, and likeness of those players sell the game instead of the offensive lineman or the backup right tackle. And that's where you have the debate. And that's why I think we see the union sooner rather than later. It's not, the collectives are forming they're joining forces in many ways to continue what they're doing. And the NCAA has no answer for it other than just trying to keep the NCAA tournament together. because that is their breadwinner, the $1 billion tournament.
Yeah, I just don't know how you continue to tie these things into scholastic pursuits.
Yeah.
Right? Once we're talking about unionizing, and that's where the deeper subject of where Senator Paul is going makes some sense, that once we become unionized, once we have a salary cap, it becomes almost impossible to try to argue that these athletes are representing a university and they also have to go to school, but we're not paying them to go to school. We're giving them scholarship, or now are we not giving them scholarships? They have to pay their own way. And then if they have to pay their own way, are they really going to allocate their own money to go to college in a system where I don't know how much college matters as much as it did 20 years ago? And going to college, how much it matters in the modern economy.
It doesn't for one and dones.
So I don't
college hoops.
That's where it gets tricky.
But where we're headed, Chad, aside from the union, is the split between the power group that decides to regulate things a certain way, and then you point back to the scholarship athlete in the group of everyone else in Division I, or you call whatever they're going to create Division I, and then you create something else. I don't know exactly who leads that, but it's not the leadership right now of the NCAA.
And we had Tommy Tuberville on, a senator, who said, it's not us. It's not the government. It's like we can't come up with anything right now, so we're not going to be able to figure out NIL and NCAA football moving forward. So you're kind of left at a crossroads where we've said it, Hutton, but Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, the leaders of the biggest conferences in college sports, they're going to be the ones that have to pick up the mantle and run with it and decide we're the ones now making the rules.
Yeah, everyone's going to cling to and then react to everything that Greg Sankey says next week.
Yep.
In the State of the Union address for the Southeastern Conference. And then we'll have responses from the Big Ten. You'll have a discussion across the sports landscape, and that will drive conversation. Whatever Saban says, too, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other thing. It's not just commissioners. It can also be coaches. There's only a handful. You can count on one hand who those are. But a couple of them will be right here in Music City speaking to the national media next week. And Sankey's at the top of the list. He could grab all the power he wanted to right now if they would join forces with Tony Petitti and the Big Ten. They certainly weren't doing that with Kevin Warren by any means. Chad, coming up, we have a big discussion on Daniel Snyder, Roger Goodell, and the ESPN report that, well, maybe they didn't work together, but both sides had reason to leak information about the emails, plural, with John Gruden. That plus a big feud between Sauce Gardner and Darrelle Revis. That's next.
What is your primary complaint?
When people pop their knuckles.
Primary complaint is chewing with your mouth open. Yuck.
I would say when you're getting off an airplane and people in the back try and sprint to the front, especially like late at night, like you don't have a connecting flight, just wait like everybody else. I'd say that's fine.
Small portions, big bill. Yeah, if the quality's good, it's okay. But if there's small portions and I got a big fat bill, not a thing, you know.
Sun Country Airlines canceling our flight less than 8 hours before we're supposed to leave.
I've never even heard of Sun Country Airlines in my life.
Velcro.
Velcro? Why? What about it?
The sound.
Oh, like nails on a chalkboard for you.
I'm a kindergarten teacher, and to hear that Velcro.
Time to teach them how to tie their shoes.
When they don't cross the road when no cars are driving.
They're just waiting for the light?
Yeah, like a normal person.
Yeah, you got to break the rules a little bit.
We're right from New York City. We know how to walk.
Really upset. Ben Jones is no longer with the Titans, but more importantly, I'm upset the Titans didn't draft a wide receiver in the top 2 rounds. We need receivers, guys. Come on, tighten up.
So what do you think about Will Levis? Was that a good move or a bad move?
Ooh, that's a tough call. Time will tell. But I think we needed a receiver more.
Smack their gum. Chew with their mouth open and smack their gum.
Okay.
That with chips and everything else, yeah.
Liars.
Liars, okay. Has anyone lied to you recently?
No.
Have you lied?
Always.
One of the biggest pet peeves is not knowing your manners. Like, not having respect or thank you, sir, ma'am.
My biggest pet peeve is when you don't push your chair in after you leave a table. That's my biggest pet peeve. Really is.
So, like, when people want to speak to you and they're like you to me, but they start walking out of the other room into different rooms and they keep talking like, I am supposed to understand. I can't hardly understand people when their back is turned to me and when they're not talking right at me. So when you're getting into different rooms and you keep talking like, yeah, blah, 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 it must be my dog talking to me.
There's a crane over every building. There's a truck.
There's a whole something. Yeah. So let's get the streets fixed and get those things done. Time's wasted. Let's go.
A dirty house.
Dirty house. Like, are you a shoes off at the front door kind of guy?
Off front, yes, ma'am.
I hate it when centre backs don't bat the odd one. Do you know,
What?
when the centre backs go up to try and catch the ball all the time, they should bat the odd one.
You know, siblings are pet peeves, you know, to be honest with you. You know, just looking at him, he's a pet peeve.
I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I like to get along with others. I kind of leave people in their place. When people don't follow the social construct, it really upsets me. Example, when you stand up on an airplane, right when it lands, and then try to push past people down the line. You know what orders you're supposed to go in. That's the part of the social contract. When you're grocery shopping and you have your cart and you don't take it back to the cart delivery spot, but you just leave it by there beside the parking spot, taking up someone else's spot, violating the social contract. Do what you're supposed to. Yeah, do your civic duty. Follow through with what your parents told you to do.
Sixth and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Chad, it was inevitable. It was a layup. It was a decision that the Jets couldn't say no to. They're not allowed based on the rules of who can or cannot opt out of Hard Knocks on HBO. The New York Jets will be, in fact, on Hard Knocks, and they're today setting up cameras within the facility, getting ready to begin filming later, 2 months? Is it 2 weeks? A week and a half? They start practice, I believe, July 20th or something like that. It's just around the corner.
It's crazy that it's this close. This was the only decision to be made.
Easy.
Of the teams that they could decide, the NFL, that, hey, we're doing it, this was the one. And now we get a show that it really is year to year with Hard Knocks.
This will be great.
In terms of interest. This is going to be one of those years that people are going to want to tune in. I remember the Raiders, John Gruden, Antonio Brown season being one that was highly anticipated. Rex Ryan became one that was great, right?
Let's go eat our snack.
Because it produced a great, let's go eat the, eat a GD snack that he threw out there. This one's going to be highly anticipated, whether it's good or not. Because the teams have final cut. I think it's going to be interesting either way.
It's going to be good because they're going to, even without Rodgers being all over the show, and he will be, Zach Wilson behind the scenes, they're going to focus on him. The other part of this is Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
And the Twitter feud that he's in. Asante Samuel took exception to the fact that Tariq Woolen didn't win Defensive Rookie of the Year because he led the league, tied for the league lead in interceptions as a rookie out of Texas San Antonio. It instead went to Sauce Gardner. I agree with that decision based on the lockdown aspects of the way he plays the quarterback position. It was very close. And Asante Samuel has now lured, just based on the back and forth with he and Sauce Gardner, he's also lured Darrelle Revis, Pro Football Hall of Famer, into the mix as well. I appreciate and love Sauce Gardner even more based on the way he's responded to this from these all-time great vets at the position. Asante Samuel initially tweeted out, "The New York media will take your career to another level." And he went to the ESPN poll of players and coaches and executives and how they're ranked. Not the voting aspect of Rookie of the Year, but just the ranking of cornerback. And he said, he continues, he goes, "For the record, Tariq had a better rookie season. They both played outstanding, but what in the hell do you guys be watching? Y'all are highly influenced by the media, not facts." And then he continues to say, and he tweets right at Gardner and says, "You have the best media behind you. I challenge you to turn some of those pass breakups into interceptions this year. You will hear from me." I love that.
Yeah.
They're going
Love
back and
that
forth.
from Revis and Revis Island.
Gardner responds and says, "I don't need you challenging me to do nothing after all this subtweeting you've been doing when you could have just hit me privately like all the other OGs. You got to relax. Me personally, I've never been the hating type." And so they continue back and forth. And he basically says, Gardner says, "Hey, relax. I'm great at what I do." Dion is a prime example of being great despite not having massive interception numbers. And then Revis gets involved, and he's got 51 or 52 career interceptions. Revis Island is why he's in the Hall of Fame. He's also been lured into this. And here's Sauce Gardner staying back, not taking the bait that much. I think the Fury's on the other end, that Tariq Woolen didn't get his due share of the accolades compared to what we saw from Sauce because of the New York media. Gardner's going to be excellent on this show.
I love this guy when he's sitting courtside at Knicks playoff games with Aaron Rodgers. I love the fact that he went at John Morant on Twitter and said, "Hey, buddy, we all have guns. We don't put them on Instagram Live.
We're not flaunting them.
Yeah, you don't have to have them out when you're going live on Instagram," which was really funny.
Oh, the best part.
This is a guy that his career, I think the NFL is better when you have defensive players that are this flashy.
Oh.
That's got the nickname, they've got the swag,
and
they've got the game to back it up, but they have the back and forth with guys. Richard Sherman had that for a while with the Seahawks. I love guys like this for the league.
Sauce Gardner buried Asante Samuel, though, in one last response. "Quit being a hater when it comes to rising stars at the cornerback position. Be mad at the voters who never considered you, quote-unquote, shut down. I was never inspired to watch your film. But something does jog my memory. I do remember we played the Falcons, and Rex Ryan made a highlight clip of you being double moved on almost every single route. And I recall Rex saying to receivers in our weekly team meetings, if he lines up across from you, double move him every time."
Sauce Gardner said that?
No, Revis to Samuel.
Oh, Revis to Samuel. Okay.
That was buried. If I said Gardner, I apologize.
Oh, I like the
That's
triangle
what Revis,
of trash talk going on.
Revis, the former Jet, jumps in and joins the fray. It's amazing. I hope that we have maybe Dion, maybe Primetime could get involved in this.
We need every flashy corner in the history of the game that's living to now chime in on this. And let's just keep tacking on another player into the feud, one after the other.
Yeah, we need Tariq Woolen to chime in as well.
Yes.
In on this. Chad, we have further details of the email leak that ended up forcing Mark Davis to fire John Gruden as the head coach of what became the Las Vegas Raiders. And ESPN's reporting multiple levels of the NFL, including, of course, Daniel Snyder, but also all the way up to Goodell, would have reason and did have reason and used it to leak email information. In some cases, Snyder's leaking a certain email, trying to spin things off of him and deflect all of the media attention. This was whenever he was not allowed to be a part of the team day-to-day operations. It leads into a report that Goodell is on the phone with Davis saying, you need to do something about this because there's going to be more emails. There will be more. What are you going to do about it? And Davis is fired back saying, like, in his response, like, to Gruden, man, screw the NFL, F what's going on with Daniel Snyder, and my hands are tied. I got to relieve you of what you're doing. I'm fascinated by this because Gruden has a lawsuit in place, and you've also got Davis, who's not afraid to speak like his father, not afraid to speak his mind if he believes he's in the right. And he was just simply stating, like, the league shouldn't tell me what I can and can't do as an owner. Goodell works for me, not the other way around. And the next email that was leaked was Gruden bashing Goodell and DeMaurice Smith among them.
It's pretty damning for Goodell on the side of he was the one behind it, that he's saying there's going to be more out there and more leaked, and the next round are the ones calling him bad things,
and it
bad
also,
words.
But the report is more about, not as much about Gruden as it is Snyder, because Snyder, based on what was reported here by Wickersham and by Don Vanatta, if Snyder had just stayed silent during that time period, he was in the clear. That's the quote in the story. He was in the clear. He would remain the owner, and there wouldn't be any controversy. Instead, it ends up backfiring, and everyone points back to him as the guy who leaked it. And I don't think there's any doubt that he started it, but there was a continuation. And Davis said he polled the locker room, he polled employees for the Raiders, and it was like 50-50 on who wanted him gone and who didn't.
Well, and it's probably a reason to fire him. At that point, it shouldn't be 50-50.
That's
right,
what he said.
Of what to do.
It was basically a half and half.
Reading this long story about this from ESPN, there's a lot of evidence pointing to Roger Goodell had a big hand in this when he caught wind of what Gruden was saying, and I think Gruden's got a case that they wanted him out. They wanted to tarnish his reputation. They were offended personally by what was said. I'm talking about Goodell now.
Yeah.
What was said about him in the email, and he wanted to flex his muscle and show his power and get him out of the league. I think Mark Davis also has a point that you shouldn't be the one that has to compel me to make a hiring or firing, right? If I'm the owner, I don't like that you're the one forcing me to fire him, and it feels like it's a very threatening posture of saying, this is bad. What are you going to do? You got to do something about it. What are you going to do about it? Oh, by the way, there's going to be more, and that more happens to be disparaging emails about me, Roger Goodell.
Yeah, you have to do something.
It looks bad. It looks bad for Goodell.
I agree
that he was definitely behind this.
But also,
I'll say this: I don't know that it looks bad. It looks a little petty, but I can see where he'd be petty over it. It looks good for Gruden's case.
Well, Goodell's, if you really dig in, like, I'm trying to think like why he would be he doesn't want further information to be leaked, and he knows that Snyder started this, and that there would be more leaked, and he's pointing. Common sense to me says it links back up to Snyder in the phone call, even though it's not quoted that he says his name. He just tells Davis, you have to do something. And Pash, one of the executives for the NFL, says there's going to be more emails that are going to be leaked. So, but here's the interesting part. So the congressional hearing pointed back to Snyder as the one who leaked these. And in further investigating different sources, all anonymous, but it goes through everyone from attorneys, league employees, agents, team officials. They cast a large net on who all was a part of the Gruden downfall, as well as the Snyder downfall. They used this to get Snyder out, and in the meantime, based on the emails, Gruden was also cast aside. One of the first bullet points, the top NFL executives, Chad, including Goodell, sources including one in ownership told ESPN and NFL executives that they told ESPN that NFL executives approved the release of some emails. So they saw these and didn't have a problem with the leak. They didn't necessarily feed it, but they didn't have a problem with it. They approved it based on one in ownership. 4 owners told ESPN they believe Goodell was personally involved. That's, I mean, again, 4 of Goodell's bosses believe he was involved with Gruden's ousting there. And NFL spokesperson Brian McCarthy repeated the league's denial in public and in legal responses that the NFL had anything to do with it. The other one is interesting.
By the way, I think there's more than 4 owners that believe it.
Well,
4 said it.
Yes.
Because it does not benefit the owners for Goodell to lose this lawsuit.
No.
So I think more believe that he's behind it, but aren't saying so.
The NFL Players Association Executive Director DeMaurice Smith also named in this as being a part of it, saying that he was boasting that he was responsible for leaking the email, for leaking the racist email referring to him. An associate with direct knowledge told ESPN the leaked email was published on the same day Smith faced a union vote to retain his job. Smith declined to comment through a union spokesperson with the NFLPA, but he's being replaced in 2024. But this came on a vote to retain him, and on the same day, the emails about DeMaurice Smith that Gruden was mentioning, and this came at a time, by the way, when he was still with ESPN on Monday Night Football.
When he was sending the emails. Yeah, he was not a coach at the time of the emails, right. That was a big day for DeMaurice Smith. The hearing to retain him and then leaking the emails as he was bragging about. Big time for him.
And meanwhile, I love how they're pointing to this being the reason why Snyder's had a downfall. He was just paid, he will be paid $6 billion in this downfall. Consider this. Like, let's be realistic here on downfall descriptions.
Well, the winners in that whole deal with the Commanders, twofold. Washington fans that don't have to deal with Dan Snyder, and Dan Snyder, who makes all the money and now can just go do whatever he wants.
And Harris, who I guess they're making up policies or allowing certain things to slip through the cracks in order to approve him as the new owner of the Commanders. The NFL also gets what they want, a league without Dan Snyder.
I wonder if there'll ever be a time where it would be acceptable in society for them to put back the name Redskins to the organization.
Or
because we have seen with the
Commanders
MLB story going back to Atlanta, like things are cyclical.
Yeah.
That's not the boilerplate topic today of team names, right, that it was when this happened. I just wonder if there would ever be a circumstance where a year from now, 10 years from now, they decide, I think now's the time. It's okay. We can go back to the original logo, and now it's acceptable again, so we're going to do it.
They can't even get a copyright on the Commander's name right now.
I know.
The trademark application.
Isn't like a roller derby team is one of the problems? Or that's the Guardians.
No, there's some
with the Cleveland Guardians,
some guy
the roller derby
who
team.
trademarked all these potential names. And he's willing to hand it over, but there are other issues with it as well. Probably
I think there
roller
should be
derby.
a cap on trademarks you can request for individuals.
Like the name Boston, like MLB.
You should have some of those Hordes trademarks.
Stay tuned.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted
he
and how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Glad you've been with us today for Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow, the Wednesday edition. Discussing tomorrow's show. It's going to be fun. Armando will be on, plus much more. A lot of discussion.
It's going to be good. We may have DeAndre Hopkins news at some point. The betting markets tell us possibly, but who knows?
Well,
we'll discuss
flipped.
with Armando.
They flipped in a significant way from like plus 500 to minus 300 for the Titans. There's got to be something there. And it's not Brad Bohannon at Alabama baseball.
You think it's Brad, whatever,
Brett or
Bert Neff Jr.? That's at
Insider Info.
It's the
he placed a $100,000
it's the NFL version of Bert Neff Jr. at some ballpark window right now trying to place a bet.
They're trying to zoom in on an encrypted app.
You don't understand. I really need to get this $100,000, this $100K bet in.
Listen, cashier.
Simply because I have inside information about DeAndre Hopkins. You must let me place this bet immediately.
I'm always eager to find out how they know before anyone else. You know?
I would say a sizable bet mixed with some form of Vegas insider info.
Yeah, but the Vegas. So here's why I'm intrigued by it. Normally, it can flip based on a report from Schefter or Rappaport that
there's no public report out there to go on.
And they've flipped it in a significant way towards the Titans.
Which tells me they've got an insider in Hopkins' camp. That has changed it.
Oh, craziness. Chad, I appreciate Brad Pitt and this F1 movie that he's filming. He's channeling his inner Tom Cruise here by actually jumping in the car and racing. They actually filmed this during the British Grand Prix.
Yeah, in Silverstone.
Yeah, I mean, I love the aspect of this where the guys are actually doing their own stunts and driving the cars that we perceive to be what they're doing in the film. Knowing that going in hypes me up even more to go see it. The same way Tom Cruise forced everyone in Top Gun Maverick to go through all of this training.
Oh, yeah.
To actually fly in these F-16s during the filming of this, where they would send them up with a camera mounted in the cockpit and then come back down and see if it worked well. Because in the meantime, you passed out because of the G-force that was on you.
I mean, who looks better, Brad Pitt at 59 or Tom Cruise at almost 61 years old? Because the photo of Brad
Pitt's 59
in the racing outfit, I looked at this and I'm thinking, this guy looks fantastic. And he is 59 years old. We may need to ask Brooke, our lone woman in the studio, to weigh in on this. Which one looks better? I'm going to go Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt?
Yeah, Brooke's saying Brad Pitt on that one. Brad Pitt is taller. That usually wins out for a lot of people. He looks great. This movie seems awesome. The fact that they had, when I first saw the report, I thought, are they going to put him on the actual racetrack with the Formula One drivers? No, they put him on like an outer lane or an inner lane where it looks like the cars are around him, but he's on his own track the entire time for the race. So looks really cool. You see him here with the cameras around him marching. Damson Idris is the co-star in it with him that's walking also. Looks great. The name of the movie is Apex. I feel like everything Apple does is one word. Apex. I'm watching a show, Platonic, with Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne right now. Hijack is the big show with Idris Elba that's on there now. It's all one-word shows. It looks great, and just kudos to Brad Pitt for just looking fantastic at 59 years old.
Chad, you were comparing Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. So Cruise was married 3 times, once to Kidman and also Nicole Kidman and then Katie Holmes, I know of. And then Brad Pitt was married to Jennifer Aniston and
Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, so they've got the
well,
names.
he was Jennifer Aniston first, and then there were rumors of him getting with Angelina Jolie on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith when they co-starred in the action deal. And then shortly after that movie, he split with Jennifer Aniston and was with Angelina Jolie.
Not bad for either.
So Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise appeared in one movie together, I believe. Do you know that movie?
No.
Interview with the Vampire.
You knew I wouldn't see that.
Yeah, that was early 90s. I was just double-checking to make sure there was another one. 1994, Interview with the Vampire, the only movie they've appeared in together. But when I was hearing Tom Cruise was talking about he wants to honor Harrison Ford by doing Mission Impossible movies until he's 80. Because Harrison Ford is 81, about to be 81, and just wrapped up the last Indiana Jones movie he's going to do. And I immediately thought, why stop there? I mean, you're Tom Cruise, Scientologist. Your body is a temple that will never be penetrated.
Thetans are running through your blood.
Go to 90. I mean, can't we do these movies until you're 90 if you're Tom Cruise?
Is that him saying that the next Top Gun is when he's 81?
Well, no. I think he's saying he wants to do movies, Mission Impossible movies, until he's 80. He's 61.
He's got to go out with Top Gun.
This is the 7th installment.
It's too good.
Oh, that would be great if he did an 80-year-old Top Gun version. Have Harrison Ford and Tom Cruise ever appeared on screen together? I don't think so. Because when I saw him say, they said he's one of my heroes that he's done this. I thought, have they ever been in a movie together? It's crazy when you go down the list of like A-list movie stars. What we would deem a movie star in 1992 versus today. And how those guys don't do movies together.
Or like the
remember when Ocean's 11 happened and it was a big deal?
Yes.
Because it was a number of A-list guys in the same movie together. And you don't see that often. Now I feel like everything's a collaboration unless you are Tom Cruise. Or even Brad Pitt to some extent. Unless you're Leo. Leonardo DiCaprio has done movies. He did a movie with Brad Pitt recently.
The cast of The Departed comes to mind there, too.
Departed's another good example. But we have so few movie stars. Leo's one. Brad Pitt's one. Tom Cruise is one. Harrison Ford is too old to be a movie star.
Yeah.
He's on a show.
Not top of mind for me.
Yeah, Shrinking, another one-word Apple show. Harrison Ford's on a TV show right now on Apple TV. So he's no longer a big movie star. He's a big movie star, but not an A-list movie star like those guys.
Chad, Jamie Foxx certainly would apply with the stardom and the star power.
He had a good run from 2005 to 2010 with big-time movies.
Yeah, there's a video of him on a boat. TMZ has the video footage, first sighting since all the health issues that were taking place. Do we know officially what the issues were now? I haven't seen that. But we've seen him before we know what the problem was.
He's hitting golf balls into the water, apparently, on the boat in the video we're watching.
Is he at Topgolf?
This is him at Topgolf, not on a boat. I thought he was on a boat.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. If not, there's video of him. TMZ is where you can find it.
I don't know what happened. I don't think anybody does. I don't think it's been reported exactly what went down.
What about like? Wouldn't you just say something?
It's weird that he
Instead
hasn't
of being
just
chased
said
to
it.
get the first video. You know what I mean?
I don't know what goes into PR decisions at times with celebrities of this ilk, because I'm with you, Hutton. If it's something that's like, could happen to anyone. I mean, if it's a heart attack or a stroke or a aneurysm or so, like, just say it if you've recovered from it. I just, when you don't say it, it automatically leads everyone to speculate on something bad being the case, right?
I think that immediately.
So
I hate that I jumped to that conclusion.
I don't want to jump to that conclusion either, but
I'm
if
also
it wasn't,
saying, like,
why wouldn't you
they're
just say
allowing that to?
Yeah,
they're
why wouldn't you
allowing
just say
us to
it?
jump to that conclusion.
And look, by all means, it is his right with his own private health to say it or not. Okay, I mean, we acknowledge that. He doesn't have to tell us what happened. I just think when you don't say it and there's so much interest in it, it leads to speculation.
Britney Spears would apply to there. Did you see the Instagram story video she put out, like trying to clarify and going against whatever recent headlines out there about the Wembanyama and who slapped who, and it was a false report, and if so, why? If she was slapped, why? So she's got this Instagram video, and just tying in Jamie Foxx here because there was a chase. I don't see much paparazzi anymore, like those type of stories. I also don't see Britney Spears very in front of the camera, other than whatever she's doing in Vegas. There are some out there that believe this is AI, a generated AI video of Britney Spears, even though it was on her account. That it's not really her, based on the way she sounds and I guess the way she looks. But I mean, it sounds like Britney Spears to me. Our buddies at the next round were discussing this, Chad, where Lance Taylor, LT, is trying to decide whether or not it's real or not, including, he thinks it is. I agree with him. But in this day and age, who knows? Because we've seen the deep fakes on YouTube.
It happens all the time. Isn't this just the ultimate alibi for a criminal ever now? That it was a deep fake AI situation?
Yeah.
If you post anything or you filmed anything or you've done anything and it gets out there, that's just AI.
Well, right now it's hacked. I've been hacked. Kadarius Toney is saying he was hacked.
But what if you just said, I'm just messing around with AI?
Yeah. And I asked AI to come up with something I would say to a fan.
Could John Gruden be reinstated in the NFL by saying that was AI that typed those racist emails about people? That wasn't me. That was a deep fake John Gruden. That was racist John Gruden. I deserve my job back.
Could Daniel Snyder say that the workplace environment was all artificial intelligence?
That was a robot. That was a robot that was groping all those women.
I was in France, off the coast of France, while this was going on.
That was my deep fake robot from Eastern Europe that tried to make out with that woman in the limo. I promise.
Is this relationship with Larsa Pippen and Michael Jordan's son artificial intelligence? Jordan's saying he doesn't approve of the relationship.
By the way, he told that to paparazzi, another paparazzi story.
But he's another one that is not out in public. So
he was in Paris.
If you're going to find him, you have to do exactly the way they're chasing him around.
Parisian paparazzi, how do they find out Michael Jordan, American sports superstars, at a restaurant and then track him down?
Oh, I don't think it's that hard.
At this restaurant.
Whenever he was here for the NASCAR race in Nashville last year, there's a DJ that's buddies with him, and they were down here on
they were in the
Second
Gulch, I feel like, at one point, too, at
down
a
here on
restaurant.
2nd Avenue at Layer Cake is where they were. And we knew that while he was there. The word was getting around fast. So I don't think it's that hard to figure out where guys are. It's getting to them.
I'm
seeing them without them slipping out the back entrance.
I guess I get it. It's Michael Jordan. But, like, in France, you would have that much paparazzi around Michael Jordan.
I mean, I'm sure there are French... The French wear the Jordan brand as well.
So Jordan says that he doesn't approve, and now Larsa Pippen is traumatized by this opinion.
Yeah, makes for a great podcast.
Is this surprising to you? I mean,
it has a Kardashian feel to it. It's very scripted, not on Jordan's part, but on Larsa Pippen's part. They're playing into this. Traumatized, that you would know that before this got out through MJ saying it.
Is this the Pippen
through
that
the guy
played
you're
it?
with?
Is this Scottie Pippen Jr.'s mom? Or is there a different woman before her?
That's a great question.
That's never been discussed.
I've never thought
I don't know.
about that.
I'm like, this guy was playing for the Lakers in the summer league last year. And we never talk about what the son thinks about this.
It is Larsa.
Larsa's his mother.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, think about that. That's your mom.
Yeah, but like
your mom is with Michael Jordan's son.
You're just playing into the headline that Larsa Pippen is traumatized. I'm thinking.
And does a podcast about their sex life.
But you would know through the guy you're with, who's the son of Michael Jordan, that Jordan doesn't approve of it. You would know that through casual conversation, eating sushi out at a nice restaurant. It doesn't have to come through paparazzi in France to figure this out. This is a very scripted. I'm traumatized by the script here. That's so obvious.
It's very, very produced.
Yes,
I would agree. The whole thing is very produced.
Yeah,
production quality not as good as upcoming Apple film with Brad Pitt, Apex, about his F1 driving.
So you know how Parcells and Belichick had the face-to-face for was it 30 for 30 where they sat down? Imagine Jordan and Pippen now having the face-to-face and this relationship comes up. That's what I'll watch.
I'd pay good money to watch that.
Yeah. I don't care, how great Jordan's son is in bed with Larsa, who claims that, she has sex 4 times a day.
See, I'd like to see a Jerry Springer type production where we bring
out. That tells me it's not one dude.
We bring out the son and bring out Larsa at different points during the interview with a surprise guest. And up next, it's B.J. Armstrong to weigh in on this feud. Come on out, B.J. Where's John Paxson at when you need him? Get Johnny out here, John.
A name that fits the
What do
show.
you think?
Luke Longley joins us.
Bill Winnington has also been with Larsa Pippen, and he's got something he wants to say.
Join us tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern, for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the
That's not
OutKick Network.